Good evening. We'll call the City Council meeting of January the 17th, 2024 to order. And if I could have you turn off your phones and any other devices that could disturb us this evening, that would be thankful. Should we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Wellender,
Here.
Councilmember Dean,
Present.
Councilmember Lowe,
Here.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Present.
Mayor Gurney.
Here. And now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise as you may and join in. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. This is the portion of the agenda where we have comments from the public. We accept comments from Zoom, and there was no closed session this evening, so there is no report. And before we get to the approval of the agenda, let me read a statement regarding hate speech language. The City of Sonoma has a non-discrimination policy and is committed to providing an inclusive and welcoming environment for all. The City of Sonoma does not tolerate hate speech. We denounce hate speech in all forms, and we embrace and celebrate the rights of all individuals in our community to be who they are in terms of their sexuality, gender, religious orientation, and beliefs, and any and all other protected classifications under the law. We recognize that the law requires the city to provide a forum for expression, including expression we find offensive and with which we fundamentally disagree. But let me make clear, none of us are required to be silent in response to hate speech. As the City Council of Sonoma, we will always call it out for what it is and make clear that as individuals and as a city, we are 100% against it in all forms. When making a comment, please ensure that your comments pertain to the item being considered. If comments do not pertain to the matter being considered, you will be given one warning and then be either asked to sit down, or if in Zoom, your ability to speak will be removed. During general public comment, all comments must be relevant to the city. Any type of hate speech is not relevant and will be immediately shut down. Thank you. Continuing with our agenda then. Do we have an approval of the agenda?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, you may.
Could I recommend that based on the number of public comments we have waiting to hear from today and the length of the meeting tonight, that we move item 1 to the end of the meeting?
Disagreement? Then we shall move item 1 to the end of the agenda. So then we will move to meeting dedications.
I move
like
the approval of the agenda.
Oh.
With item 1 moved to the end of the agenda.
Thank
I
you.
second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Aye.
Mayor Gurney.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, next item is meeting dedications. Do we have a meeting dedication?
Yes, sir.
We have 2.
All right.
Mr. Ding.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Gurney. I would like to dedicate our city council meeting tonight to Dr. Laurie Saluda. Laurie Saluda, a prominent pharmaceutical scientist who lived in the Sonoma for 15 years, died at her Sonoma residence at the age 60 on December 18, 2023. Dr. Sulada graduated from the UC Davis with a BS degree in physiology in 1986 and a PhD in pharmacology and toxicology in 1994. During her career, she was the vice president of the Modis Therapeutics and scientist in biomarine for over 10 years. Her professional achievements, including large and small molecule drug development, gene therapy, and therapeutics for the rare disease development indicators. She was a passionate and a supporter of the San Francisco Ballet and had many friends in the Sonoma here who were extremely saddened by her passing at a relatively young age. I would like to thank our community, especially for Angel Vero and David Katz, taking care of your friends and communicating with her families. And I want to say thank you. Thank you, Mayor Gurney.
Thank you, Mr. Ding. Mr. Wellender.
Yes, I would like to share this evening a dedication for Jeanette Evans. She is the wife of a former alcalde, Whitney Evans. As far as I recall, Whitney and Jeanette moved from Cleveland in around 1995. And as you know, Whitney has been very active. They both have been very active in a variety of philanthropic endeavors. Jeanette was one that I'm not misusing the word. She was sweet. She always had a smile on her face, and she was very approachable. And she was one that had the unusual characteristic of when you walked away, you typically felt better. So she did come down with an element of dementia about 5 years ago, and that spawned Whitney's desire to develop a support system for both those with dementia as well as the caregivers. And so it is with sadness that I share this, but I also request that if you were to see our former alcalde walking the streets, please greet him and give him our support. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wellender. It's called organization skills. All right. Let me unbury the agenda here. And we will continue with council members' reports and comments. Are there any council member reports and comments? Mr. Ding.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Gurney. Before the Christmas, that is I forgot the date, that is the Thursday. I was invited by COC, that is the homeless service by county, and attended the memorial ceremony for the year of 2023 homeless deafness. Total in our county, we have 97, and the people, some of them that is a veteran, they didn't die in the war, but they died on the street. So that is really a good time, and bring the whole community together and take this issue seriously. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Ferrari-Rivas?
Yeah, I do not have a report this time. Surprise, surprise.
Okay. Mayor, former mayor, ex-mayor.
No report, thank you.
And Mr. Wellender.
No report, but a confession that I played hooky today from the COC board meeting because I was engulfed in preparation for this evening's council. So there is my confession.
All right. Well, thank you for that confession. Somehow I do have some things to report. Obviously, we did a State of the Valley, State of the City address back on January the 5th. Very well attended, lots of interesting information provided. And if you missed it, I believe that you could view that on KSVY's website archive or on the city's website, I would imagine. So check it out. I attended the Tourism Improvement District meeting on the 11th of January, and I guess the summary would be they are very healthy financially. They awarded a couple of small grants to encourage tourism during the off-season, so to speak, and so they are actually doing pretty well, and we're continuing to work with them a little more closely. On the 11th as well, I attended the Sister Cities meeting and had a lovely time meeting the membership of Sister Cities and learning more about what they do. And I had the honor to be presented with an award that I'm going to actually present back to them tonight, because it really is the work that they do that won them this award. And this award comes from Sister Cities International, and the award is in recognition of the outstanding work done by Sonoma Sister Cities to advance the goals and mission of Sister Cities International while focusing on the importance of human rights. And the award specifically is for the work that they have done with Ukraine, our sister city, Kiev in Ukraine. And so it's my honor tonight to present it back to them. It's kind of like a tennis match. And but it's glass and pointy. So if you would come up, I would love to present this back to you. And again, congratulate you for the work that you have done and continue to do. Turn around here. Let's get a shot of this.
He's an actor. Move with this sharp object.
Anyway, I'll give this back to you for display purposes and the cabinets out in the lobby.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving right along.
So is that going to be placed in the lobby? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you.
So if you haven't noticed, there are some display cases being adorned in the lobby. Apparently we get more awards than we can store. So lastly, shared services. This is a county and city committee that's looking at shared services throughout the valley. And we met, and some of the things that we're talking about, we still have a survey, needs assessment survey, I will call it, that we're talking about working with. And of course, the word annexation pops up in our conversations. And I think the takeaway was that our goal setting is going to be very important on February 2nd. And if you are interested at all in these topics, we would love to hear from you during the goal setting, because we think that it's all related. What the city sets for goals and the issues of annexation and shared services are related and tied to each other. So I encourage you to do that, and that's about all I have to report on that. Lastly, here, I get to make committee assignments, and the good news is for committee assignments, most of them are as they have been the past year. I think consistency is very important with these committees. And so I'm going to pass this out to my fellow council members so that they have a copy of the assignments. And again, the only one change I didn't get to inform anybody about was Patricia is going to become the library primary person for the Sonoma Valley Library. Yeah, there you go. I knew she liked to read.
I thought I was becoming a librarian there for a second. That'd be fun.
So anyway, Do I need to take any other action with the committee assignments?
No, we would just make a note that there are copies available at the front table if anyone in the public would like to see them.
Okay, there are copies available at the front table, yeah. And it's a color document, so anyway, enjoy that. Moving along, and I see weird things now. I've been bombed on my computer here. It's literally. Go over here.
Mr. Mayor, if I might?
Yes, you might.
I'm unable to attend there's a Sonoma County Mayor, the Legislative Committee, and I'm noticing that Mr. Ding is the alternate in 2024. And so I think perhaps the clerk can send you I believe it's this Friday coming up. Yeah, and I'm out of town. So I just,
This coming the Friday?
yeah. I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I sent it to you, and the reason I'm bringing it up in public is I had sent it to you, Mayor Gurney, because thinking you were my alternate, but you're not, so. I see
Okay.
it's Mr. Dick. Okay,
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
okay.
Thank you. All right. No further council reports. Yay. City manager comments and announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple items to share with the council and the public. First, the new Sonoma County Service Center that opened today. Actually, there was a ribbon cutting today. It's in the new Nelson Building on Highway 12 at Verano. They held a ribbon cutting, and there's going to be an open house on Friday, January 6th from 3 to 5, so you can go visit the site and look at what they're going to be doing there in that facility. The goal is to have some services over here in the valley, so you don't have to drive all the way to Santa Rosa to receive certain services. Those services are still being fleshed out in terms of who will be stationed there and how often they'll be there. And then once that's established, that information will be shared broadly. But again, that's the new Sonoma County Service Center. It's a new model to have service centers throughout the county, so not everything's just in one place in downtown Santa Rosa. Second, just want to give an update. We just paid a bill this past week, and I thought it'd be interesting to share that for October through December of 2023, we paid $2,219 in support of the Route 32 bus. And this is the Sonoma Valley Shuttle that is a free bus shuttle that goes up and down the valley and provides services to anybody that wants to jump on and off that bus. That bus, and they provided me some numbers, during the 3-month time frame, 3,700 adults used it, 1,900 seniors, and 5,600 youth used the bus during that 3-month time frame. So that is seems like a very good investment, and glad it's being used. I see that bus come through constantly. Seems like it runs about every hour or so up and down the valley, and I think a lot of people use it to get to school and other things. So just wanted to share that with the council, that it is being used, and the investment that you're putting into that is being realized. And then finally, as the mayor mentioned, we do have council goal setting on February 2nd. That's a Friday from 9 to 5. We are setting a time certain for public comment so that the public does know when they can have an opportunity to speak. You don't have to sit around all day waiting for that opportunity. So at 10 o'clock, we're proposing to do the public comment section of the goal setting. So that's the chance that the public can attend to provide feedback to the council prior to your deliberations on establishing your goals for 2024. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
I have no comments this evening, thanks.
Thank you. We have no presentations, so we will move to the consent calendar. And the items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be acted upon in a single motion unless a council member wants to remove an item for further consideration. Is there any need to remove anything from the council agenda? Is there a motion to approve said consent?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second?
Motion and second.
Would you like to have public comment?
Oh, I would love to have public comment, absolutely. Public comment on the consent calendar.
At this time, there's no hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, it's an exciting consent calendar. May we have a vote?
Councilmember Wellender,
Yes.
Councilmember Dean,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas,
Aye.
and Mayor Gurney.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the headliner for the evening. Item number 8, public hearing. Public hearing to consider an appeal by the applicant of the Planning Commission's decision to approve the use permit exception to Development Code loading standard, reduction of residential component, design review, demolition permit, and lot line adjustment for the hotel project Sonoma. And our Community Development Director, Jennifer Gates, will lead us in the discussion.
All right, thank you, Mayor and City Council members. So before you tonight is the second hearing on the appeal. So on December 6, 2023, the City Council considered the appeal by the applicant to the Planning Commission's decision. The appeal was considered at that meeting, and City Council had received a presentation by staff and the applicant, as well as received public comment, voting to continue the item and provided direction to the staff. The direction included to return to City Council at a later date to reconsider the non-residential affordable housing impact fee, as well as to look at the condition of approval number 8 related to the residential component fee on a price per square foot basis, the time frame for payment, and interest requirements in working with the applicant. So following council direction, staff has met with the applicant to discuss the proposed modifications that will meet the city's goals and also allow the project to move forward. Staff is recommending that condition of approval number 8 be amended to reflect the payment of the residential component fee over 5 years from the certificate of occupancy at $50 per square foot, which is a reduction from the $100 a square foot, and with no interest charged, which originally had a 5% interest. The original 100 square foot in lieu fee was not in place when the application was accepted as complete. Staff is also recommending adding an option for off-site construction of new residential for rent development within the city limits. The proposed recommendation would lessen the impact of the project's infeasibility as provided by the applicant, thereby allow for project benefits to the city, including the creation of housing, including affordable housing, increased economic and fiscal benefits to the city through the generation of additional transient occupancy taxes, as well as economic development. Staff recommendation is for City Council to affirm the appeal in part, to modify the condition of approval 8, and adopt the attached draft City Council resolution. That's part of your staff report. City Council does still have the alternative actions proposed previously, including to further modify the condition of approval that's currently before you, to deny the appeal, or to request additional information from the appellant. This concludes staff's presentation, and myself, as well as Christina Tierney, the project planner, are available to respond to any questions.
All right, thank you. Council, do you have any questions at this point? Go ahead.
So I have one question, and it's related to a lot of other questions or comments that I've gotten from the public in regards to vehicle miles traveled and, greenhouse gases being increased because of additional hotel on the plaza and the size of it. So I wanted to know the number of electrical charging stations, if that is something that Mr. Cooper could answer in regards to the parking.
We can look that up and get back to you.
Yeah, and let me just,
Hooper, excuse me, Mr. Hooper.
yeah, let me just
Thank
kind of
you.
preface this. I think two things. Number one, I need to ask a very important question. Any council members need to disclose ex parte conversations? Seeing none,
Well, I mean, with whom?
with the developer.
With the developer? None.
So this would be, you've already provided a disclosure at the last meeting.
Correct.
Right.
So it would be related to disclosures since
Since.
the last hearing until now, with either the applicant or appellant or a interested person, as that is defined in our policy. So a civic organization, a labor union that has a position on the matter, that would also be required disclosure.
Does that extend to just members of the public who have contacted us?
No, not just individual constituents.
Thank you. Okay, I have no disclosures.
No.
Seeing none, we can continue the discussion. I was going to say, to make this as efficient as possible, is any questions that come up and where there's not an immediate answer, we'll capture that, and then we'll try to address those at a later part of the discussion. Ron, did you? Okay. And go ahead, please.
During the course of the development of this project and, you know, the 12 years and whatever, has the size of the project been modified from its original presentation?
We'll answer that. We'll have the applicant answer that question.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question too. How many other projects are hanging out there where they received an application as complete prior to the enactment of the in lieu fee ordinance?
That's another question we'll have to look into.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have no other questions. Wait, one more.
I always have more questions.
Okay.
So I would like to know what happens if the appellant, if we were to deny the appeal, and then the appellant were to sell the property, and someone were to come and, you know, whoever was going to buy that property wanted to develop a hotel there instead of them. What requirements, so what entitlements would pass to them, and what criteria would they have to meet to avoid another EIR? I know it may be a big answer, but
No,
we
that's
could give it-
actually-
okay.
Entitlements are going to run with the land, and for a specific time period. So they have a certain set of number of years in which to actually start utilizing those entitlements. So any sale of the property, the project as proposed, would continue forward. Any modifications to the project that has been actually approved would then be evaluated and determined whether or not it's compliant with the existing environmental document.
Thank you.
Mayor Greeny, I have a question.
Mr. Dean.
Here in the staff report, you mentioned about some of the convert some the existing and the area on housing to the residential housing and affordable. And also here under the point 7D, and also you mentioned about the construction for the rent, multi-family in the housing that includes required deed restricted affordable residential units. I'm wondering here that you mentioned about construction. That is a new construction, or that is a construction with the effort to convert commercial to the residential? Because here I didn't see very clearly.
So D is new construction. So it's construction of new development.
Wonderful. That is what I want to see. Thank you.
Okay, I'm seeing no further council questions, so.
We have an
are-
EV response, if you would like your EV charging station.
Sure, thank you.
So the EV charging is actually something that we went back and forth with the applicant. One of the challenges with projects that go on for a long time is there are building code changes. So EV charging is regulated by the California Building Code, CalGreen, and that's one of the things that has changed. So in the last few months, we worked together to identify, needed a little bit more space, and so the total is 58. So 58 would be EV charging.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and open the public hearing. And we'll begin with our applicant.
So just one last answer to the question. The project size have changed dramatically. When we first introduced this, the square footage of the hotel by itself was 120,000 square feet. The hotel, I believe, is down to about 66,000 square feet now. There is another 20,000 of residential that's in the current proposal, but it is substantially downsized. Downsized in both square footage and use. We had an event center, we had a second restaurant, we had quite a bit more facilities. We were going to convert the 7 residential units in the Lynch building to hotel rooms at one time. So there's less of everything since we started this project, substantially less. And of course, we undergrounded the parking at no small expense to bring the scale of the project down, the above ground scale of the project down to answer some of the public concerns. The staff recommendation we're supportive of. It's not everything that we came here asking for last time. We believe it's a good middle ground. It also gives us a chance and some time to look at some alternatives that are more, I think, what the council is looking for, which is workforce housing for rent housing and not luxury second home condominium. So we commit to go to work on that. The options listed in the staff recommendation include instead of paying an in lieu fee, going to work and actually trying to build something. And so we're going to go to work on that. And then Councilmember Ding, you had asked the question, part of it was about the existing units. We still have the option to convert those to offset some cost from market rate to low income. But the ground up opportunity is the new item there that will look very hard to try to perhaps add some for rent properties to this community. So that's all I have.
Well, thank you. The hearing is open. Anybody in the audience like to speak? Don't everybody get up at once?
Mayor Gurney, there's no hands raised on Zoom at this point.
Oh, thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Morel. The address is 483 Mall Court here in the wonderful city of Sonoma. This hotel, well, I could preface this by saying, as many of you know, but perhaps not all, I chair the city's Climate Action Commission. I'm not here representing the commission, I'm representing myself as a climate action advocate. I remind us we have a stated goal of net zero greenhouse gas emissions associated with the city of Sonoma in 2030, less than 6 years from now. This hotel proposal makes me want to present to you my strong recommendation that this hotel, and of course existing hotels, come under a new ordinance to be discussed and fabricated, and I would be eager to work with potentially the city attorney on this, to add a climate fee on each hotel room, potentially $100 per night, though could be 80, could be 60, to be rebated for those who arrive in an electric vehicle, to be cut in half for those who arrive in a hybrid vehicle. We can work on proof as to how you come. I have an electric vehicle, I have a clean air sticker that includes paperwork and so on. There are ways to do this. And we send the right signal that we are potentially approving a large new hotel on our historic plaza, and we are well aware of its potential climate impacts, and we're dealing with it. An ancillary thought, not directed at the hotel, but relevant this evening, is to have a similar fee at a much lower number, I don't know if it's $4, $7, $8, on the restaurants and tasting rooms. Equally rebated for EV drivers, equally cut in half for hybrid arrivals, but again, sending a signal we're serious about climate-smart tourism in Sonoma. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Gurney and members of the City Council. My name's Carol Marcus, 873 First Street West. I'm not sure if there is precedent for an applicant who's been granted approval from the Planning Commission to appeal that approval, but this applicant seems to want even more from the city than it's already been granted. Truth be told, tonight I would like the city to treat this project as de novo, and for you to ask the applicant to return to you with a project that has 50% of the built area devoted to housing and 50% to commercial, as I have been requesting at the Planning Commission for some 12 years, and as Sonoma's development code requires. And I request this knowing that the time it's taken for the project to get to this point has had little to do with the city's delays, but the applicant's unwillingness to create a project that complies with Sonoma's development code and general plan. But if you're not inclined to treat this hearing as de novo, I would ask that you simply deny the appeal before you and uphold the Planning Commission's decision for the reasons that I outlined in my letter to you earlier today. The applicant has already been given ample relief by the city in being required to construct only half of their required housing while constructing 50% more hotel. The lot line adjustment approval, which allows for a larger project than the general plan and development code envision for this site. The acceptance of the environmental impacts of greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. And I'd like to add the options in condition of approval 8 are not realistic or timely and result in no net gain of housing and should be denied as an option for offsetting housing costs. And in addition to denying the appeal, if the city truly wants to prioritize affordable housing, as it has said, as I suggested in my letter, you would reapportion the current 1% of the TOT designated to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund to 2% for this project in perpetuity. The issue before you is about affordable housing as well as housing in general in the center of the city. The applicant proposes building fewer than a third of the housing units that are allowable on this site. I ask you this evening to be open to the possibility that this housing may not result in just luxury condominiums, as has been suggested, but could also be suitable for Sonoma seniors downsizing, who would relish the idea of living closer to the center of the city, or for young couples, perhaps. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my comments. I have, as I mentioned in my letter, I'm a 35-year resident of Sonoma, having lived within a 3 to 4 block radius of the plaza, and feel very grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. My name is Mary Martinez. I have lived in Sonoma a long time. I worked on the plaza for 40 years. I spent a lot of time and energy going to meetings, reading reports, and one of the things that we were very concerned about, a group of us, was the construction of this particular hotel project. I have watched closely from a distance due to COVID but I concur completely with Carol and her comments. You are very lucky to have in the audience people who are very skilled at planning and have years of experience behind them and vision. It is your duty to us as residents of Sonoma to have the vision to see the future. Those of us that did this in the past are getting old. And I may be one of those people that would love to be in the center of Sonoma, but I can't afford $5 million for a condo. So my comments are simply that you must consider that you have the power to deny this particular project, and in denying it, you will not set a precedent for future developers. You know they're here, or you know they're waiting, and they're waiting for people to raise their hand and say aye, so that you can give and give and give. This developer has already asked for so many exceptions. One exception that made me very upset was the loading and unloading. I think about the construction chaos that will happen on our historic project during the construction of this project. It's not just an above ground property. They're going to go underground. And I don't know how many people remember, but Sonoma used to have creeks running through the center of the town. And when we have great rains, like we did not too long ago, those creeks flood. So please consider the vision for Sonoma and the vision that those of us who work so hard and read reports and wrote reports for the new development code, the new development code, which was written in 2006, that this is supposed to be following. So please listen to us. We come out to speak to you, to request your vision for the future of our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm Johanna Patry. I live at 621 Napa Road. We understand the council that we've referred the appeal back to staff to further negotiate with the applicant additional relief from the Planning Commission's approval. We met with staff. They did the best they could, as they did not have much to work with, such as a high $10 million residential fee. However, we are perplexed as to why the council found they had to further negotiate with the applicant. The applicant has received approval of the project as proposed, and in so doing, received many concessions, including a 50% reduction in the development of a housing component as required by the development code, which would be much costlier to build than the $2 million fee that the Planning Commission required. And it gave them more land on which to build their humongous 62-room hotel. And there are environmental impacts that cannot be mitigated. The applicant threatened to walk away from what? They have received an entitlement, which goes with the land, and has already increased the value of that land in accordance with some discussions we've had with local realtors, perhaps doubled in value. They can sell that property with its entitlements should they decide not to build the hotel. Do you really believe that reducing the housing component fee by $1 million makes the hotel project now financially feasible, where a $2 million plus fee put the project financially at risk? We know that $2 million added to the Housing Trust Fund in and of itself is not going to solve the housing problem. You all campaigned for affordable housing and additional housing of all kinds, and for that we supported you. But every bit helps. An opportunity in hand is better than 4 elusive alternatives, such as alternative conditions 8A through D, some of which result in no net gain. I'd like to call to your attention that the applicant had 12 plus years during the process to come up with a proposal to construct affordable housing or additional housing off-site, as in condition 8D, but they didn't. So why are they putting this on the table now? And why are you letting that be a condition of not paying at least the $2 million fee? Negotiating further with the applicant through this appeal sends a very bad message. I ask that you uphold the Planning Commission's decision requiring the $2 million plus residential component fee. But I further ask that you discuss, as part of your deliberations, the value of our concerns that we have put forth to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Victor Conforti, 206 East Spain. I've lived near the plaza for 45 years now, and have the same concerns that my fellow Sonomans have in terms of the impacts of this project on the plaza. We do have a code that, development code that provides and requires a residential component for a commercial project. It's been on the books for over 20 years. I was part of a group that helped create that. It's an important concept for getting housing. I've built half a dozen small, very small versions of these, which were easy to do and simple to design and build, with offices below and apartments on the second floor. It's created quite a bit of housing in this community over the years, smaller projects. No code requirement, just was done. Recently, the issue of an in lieu fee was, a lot of time was spent on that, and the experts formulated a $100 per square foot fee, which is equivalent to what the in lieu housing that's required for a project. With that, the cost implications of that, the in lieu fee is basically a trade-off for that. The hotel is, and the housing is feasible to do together. They've proved that by the design that was approved by the Planning Commission. There's an example of the two together. So it's been proven on paper, at least, that it's not infeasible. The worst thing that I think could come out of this is a reduced fee for the in lieu fee. That is going to set a precedent that's going to affect this city for a number of years, well, probably for the extent of the ordinance. Anyone else who wants to build a hotel in this town is going to want to get that same reduction. It's not going to disappear, and there are a lot of future projects that can happen here in this town. There are a lot of those properties that are not included in the analysis in the housing element on West Napa Street and on up the highway that will develop over the next 10 years, and we'll be losing out on a housing opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, council members. I'm Jim Bohar. I live at 299 First Street West. I served on the Planning Commission, and I was extended on 2 more terms by the council members. This is a difficult presentation for me tonight, but there are some things that I believe must be talked about. This hotel is unique. It's the largest downtown project in the modern history of Sonoma. Likely, it would have major impacts on the most sensitive part of our town, which happens to be in the historic overlay and near the plaza by a couple hundred feet. With our collective experiences, training, education, I include the previous speakers, we met with 4 council members to express our concerns. This meeting calls for fresh new thinking. Why would Kenwood appeal their own victory of the Planning Commission, which provided valuable concessions? You've heard these before, but they include truck loading right in the middle of First Street West. I live on First Street West. Reduced parking requirements, employee parking essentially controlled by the hotel. Approval of a controversial looming 62-room hotel. 50% reduction for the reduction of development code requirement for housing component. That was mentioned, but it also has been talked about that it's approximately a $10 million concession it would cost to build that. The $2.2 million for the housing fee in lieu is $100 a foot. Obviously, is nowhere near what it costs to build a piece of housing, but it could be, if it was paid in the right fashion, in whole, without a delayed payment, it could be the catalyst to start an affordable housing project with a company like Saha that could buy some land and start a project. The approval from the Planning Commission resulted in a windfall increase in the market value of the land under what was print shop, a couple warehouses, and an office building, to now land that's under a $70 to $90 million, after it's finished and stabilized, $70 to $90 million hotel. The delta, that's a windfall in the developer's pocket, is about $2,350,000, far more than the original housing in lieu fee. The applicants threatened to walk from the project due to the $2.2 million housing fee. What good reason would the applicant have to walk on a fully entitled project? It's saleable on that night. It's saleable today. It'll be saleable in the future. We've got Marriott down owns a lodge. We've got Fairmont that owns the Sonoma Mission Inn. Respectfully, I ask you to support the housing initiatives that you campaigned on when you joined the council. Avoid a dangerous precedent for the next project to walk through our development code and general plan. Respect the fine, hard work of the Planning Commission, who has approved this. Uphold the Planning Commission's approval with a $2.2 million housing component fee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cedra Nathan. I live at 435 La Quinta Lane.
Could you pull the microphone down towards your...
My name is Cedra Nathan. I live at 435 La Quinta Lane. Thank you for hearing me. And also, I want to thank all the comments. I'm a new person to Sonoma, and so I think you've got to look forward in a vision of what you want Sonoma to be, but I'm also recognizing that to honor your past and understand where you've been is extraordinarily helpful when you look forward and imagine what you want Sonoma to be. So I'm a relatively new person. I'm one of those people who is trying to imagine and help with what kind of Sonoma do we want to have. And so I've been looking at some of the statistics of tourism and our current population to see what is it that we actually need as a community, where are we trying to grow, and who do we want to have come here? What would they be looking for? Our average population age for women is about almost 57, which is about 20 years older than the average in the state of California. And the people who come here who visit are primarily from California. More than 50% of our visitors in Sonoma are within the state of California itself, and they're day trippers, and they come up to have experiences. They're experiential visitors. The second biggest reason that people really like to come here is because of historic visitation. And so those are the attributes that we really want to make sure that we have a healthy community for the people who live here, and that we build a healthy place for visitors and current residents. And so that's an infrastructure and planning decision. And I've been hearing about all the work that's gone into it historically, but those are the same groundwork, that's the same groundwork going forward. One of the things that's really important to me is to ensure that we have permeability and linkages and walkability throughout this city. And so we have some of that right now in the hotel that's on First Street that goes past Krug Event Center. And so what I'm concerned about is any development that creates hard blocks or hard breaks in what we approve, and trying to ensure that we allow visitors, tourists, and community members to have places that are always dynamic and interesting, and that don't put up barriers for interacting with the unique character of Sonoma and the kind of place we want to be in the future. But I also really want to honor all these comments I've been hearing from everyone else in the past. I think that that's really interesting. So that's what I wanted to share with you all.
All right, thank you. And welcome to Sonoma.
Thank you.
Mayor Gurney, council members, staff, members of the public. Tom Conlon, I live just outside the city limits. I also serve on as vice chair of your Climate Action Commission, although I'm not in that capacity here tonight. Looking back over the 12 years that we've watched this project take shape, I've actually been pretty proud of the city of Sonoma for taking due diligence and really looking this project over hard. I think the developer has worked pretty hard, and I think the Planning Commission in particular has worked really hard on this, and I think we should be proud of the work that the Planning Commission produced. I have been surprised, though, that this applicant was not content with the as was described, the victory at the Planning Commission after so many years, and has come back to you pleading poverty and inability to make the books balance given the interest rate environment and whatnot. We know interest rates aren't going to stay high forever. We know that the rights that you've conferred, the entitlements, will be with this project if you deny the application or the appeal tonight. Looking over the Statement of Overriding Considerations, the CEQA document, which, by the way, is a pretty good CEQA document. It's gotten better over the years. I'm trying to figure out what are the values that Sonoma's communicating here with the series of decisions that have been made. Your Planning Commission held the line and really did extract housing commitments, not just from this project, but from other projects, the MacArthur Place project in particular before. I believe that was a high water mark for us, and if you accept this appeal and the staff's proposal tonight, you will have set that precedent at a lower bar than the Planning Commission did. So if you do so, know that that's what your intent is. That's the value you're trying to communicate to the community, to future developers as well. Secondarily, those of us who serve on your commissions, in particular your Climate Action Commission, we have a declared climate emergency in this town. We have to date no budget allocated to that. So if we're taking $1 million out of the potential funding of housing, that means that housing is going to be competing with climate in the future. And I just can't see how we meet all of our goals, all of our values, if we don't hold the line on these things. So personally, I'm proud of the commission's work, the Planning Commission's work. I think staff has done a reasonable job here trying to pull things together under the request of the applicant. But I do not believe this project will go away if you reject it tonight. So I encourage you to do so. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and staff. My name is Fred Allebach, and my family came to the United States in 1685 on the invitation of William Penn So that gives my public comments a lot of gravity, just so you know. I think, a lot of talk about the planning commission. The council is the elected body here, not the planning commission. And it's the council that makes policy and makes the code. So what you decide to do is the code and is the policy. And so you are the elected, so I don't think that we should forget that. Let's see, I got my comments numbered here. It's pretty obvious that the city's economy and the city has enabled the tourism industry here with the Tourism Improvement District funding the chamber. And so the city has a trajectory here of supporting tourism, and this hotel is part of that. And the planning commission, the city has various interests here. And so people on the planning commission, some of them have been fairly seriously anti-hotel over the years, while at the same time the city supports tourism, enables the Tourism Improvement District, and funds the chamber, which is all about bringing more tourism, and the Visitors Bureau. So, this is, you've got to keep that in mind as well. And so one of the critical parts of this here is that the hotel has a union provision where the hotel owners won't stand in the way of union formation, and that goes with the project even if it's sold. So that's something that's really important, and that's what makes this sustainable tourism. The city doesn't have sustainability all in one spot. It has a climate plan that's all environment, and that has hardly any or at all equity in it. So here you have your tourism and economic, but you have the chance to allow a place that might bring a union provision and tip the rest of the tourism combine towards sustainability. So I think that offsets the VMT, and you have to keep in mind that your sustainability is not all in one place. I think the housing aspect is worth the deal that's made. The city's not going to get to the housing requirements through inclusionary ordinance alone. You're going to have to get some big 100% affordable projects. I think the benefits of the union provision here outweigh all these other things. And that's about it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mayor Gurney. First time I've said that, I think. Robert Demler, First Street West. I think my 1607 is a little more gravitas-y than 1648. Thank you. The people who spoke tonight opposing this, your approval of this resolution, made some excellent points. They really did make some excellent points. We have a code, but all the codes we have give the city council, like has been said, the right to make adjustments. This situation has been compared to the precedent set for MacArthur Park, and I was present at that meeting, that planning commission, and one of your former temporary planning directors went back and forth with the applicant outside of the room, back and forth negotiating, and I think he bullied the people. I'll use that word advisedly, bullied the people into taking that, accepting the $2 million penalty. I call it a penalty. We want to progress this town. We want to progress tourism. We want to have good facilities for our own residents. And I'm one of those residents who lives very, very close. I'm probably the closest one to this project in the room tonight. And I would like to see you work out something tonight. It's gone on too long to have this project go forward with your caution to observing some of the comments that were made by those opposing, and particularly the ecological aspect of this, that would be a good signal for Sonoma to provide. And I just think we need to get on with our lives here and accept that we need to have some growing pains. And this is a growing pain for the city in many, many, many ways. And again, I say I'm going to suffer the most from construction times, if I live that long, but I was hoping this hotel would be built in my lifetime. I turned 83 last December. I'm still going strong, so please help me see this hotel in my lifetime.
Thank you.
Somebody's pen there. Hi, David Eicher, and I live in Loma Court. TOT generates the most revenue to the city of any source. The city needs to be careful on relying upon one source for such a significant portion of its revenue. And I find it ironic that you are about to approve a project which has significant impact on GHG emissions, yet Agenda Item 9.1 is a hearing accepting the Climate Action Strategies document, which includes a need to have, quote, a significant reduction in GHG emissions. You are being asked to approve a reduction in the required residential component and reduce the in-lieu fee, which helps build affordable housing. Yet, the general plan emphasizes housing, including housing in the downtown area. Affordable housing is a priority of the City Council. The RENA numbers have increased for the next cycle. And according to the KMA Nexus study on housing impact fees, the hotel induces the need for 33 new housing units, of which 30 need to be affordable, but only 2 affordable units are being built. We're going backwards. According to the EIR, the new hotel will draw most of its guests from other lodgings. Thus, occupancy at the other lodgings will decrease, reducing room rates and the TOT collected from them. It happened in Yountville when 77 hotel rooms were added over a 2-year period. The annual occupancy rate dropped, the average daily room rate dropped by 7.3%, and TOT decreased. And based upon the applicant's projections for 10 years of TOT at about $108 million in revenue, the TOT was less than that, but the total revenue for the hotel from room rentals will be $108 million. Surely the applicant can afford $2.2 million over 5 years if it's receiving $108 million, and that doesn't include the restaurant income. The staff report alternative is, quote, request additional information from the appellant to substantiate and support arguments, unquote. The resolution states, the applicant provides substantial evidence, unquote. They seem to contradict each other. Where is the substantial evidence? I haven't seen it. Have you? The only evidence I have seen is that the TOT projections, which actually support the applicant having ample revenue to pay the $2.2 million in lieu fee. And also, this is a de novo hearing, so you have run the gamut. You can deny the project if you want, or you can add conditions approval. Which one is being added, for example, which is the being able to buy market rate housing and convert it to affordable. But there's no clause in there that says that that the tenants have to that don't able to qualify affordable housing, that they wait until those tenants have terminated their leases. In that case, the tenants could be evicted. So you need to add that clause in like it's in for the Lynch building. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Going once, going twice. Going to close the public hearing.
Mayor, is it possible to ask the staff a question before we begin this? It's relevant.
Well, okay, yes.
I would love to get some clarity because one of the things that's been very consistent tonight has been the expression or the concern about us setting a precedent. It's my understanding, based upon what I've been told, is that because the application was deemed complete, I believe it was 2012, at that point in time, there was no mention of an in lieu fee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So I'm struggling, and we may not open back up for the public to provide me some clarity, but if the rules have changed and we're moving forward with clarity as far as needing an in lieu fee, how are we setting a precedent for future projects? Why would somebody come to us and say, you did this for this individual, you are obligated now to do it for us, when the rules have changed? So am I missing something here, or can I get clarity?
If our city attorney wants to add to it, I'll start. So just to clarify, that is correct. There was no in lieu fee. The actual in lieu fee for residential component went into effect in August of 2023. So that's when it went into effect. It was approved in, I just looked up the date, in May. So it was a 60-day. So that is when it went into effect. There have been other discussions about the waiver and things like that. And so the residential component section of the code was also modified in 2023. So both of those changes happen to provide further clarity, and that is what's in effect for any project moving forward in the future. There was a question in regards to if there are any projects right now. There are none. So, and there haven't been any projects since the in lieu fee went into effect, or otherwise that are residential or commercial projects requiring a residential component and requesting a waiver. There are no projects currently in place.
All right, then we will go ahead with council discussion. Who would like to go first? No discussion. Mr. Ding.
All right. Let me start. First of all, I would like to thank everyone in this room and each individual's organizations working so hard during the past 12 years. That is not in a short time. It's a really a long time. I'm not lucky enough to know the concept of democracy because I'm a newcomer. But definitely during the past 12 years, it's kind of a lesson for me. What it means democracy at the local level. So my understanding is democracy is something always and made comments by somebody else. And most important thing is people listening. And then if you say something make the sense, people will follow you. That is my understanding. So now I pretty much for sure, out in the case, hotel project of Sonoma could be used as the case study for the college to tell the people what it means democracy, because back and forth. I pay attention to this project and the local politics when I see ballot measure at the beginning and initiated by Larry Barnett and a group of other people. At that time, they wanted to approve, our residents to approve, and the hotel developer should be below the 25 units, rooms for that hotel. And then I still remember this ballot measure could not be passed with very little, the differences. So, this project moved forward. So it's not a 25. Right now, is 62 units. So I would like to say congratulations for our developer. It's a big achievement. And from our community, and our speaker already mentioned, we appreciate its vision. They look at it afar, and also they do have a lot of experience today, and we learn a lot. My understanding is back and forth so many times and waste a lot of the time. When we make the decision, when we start a project, money is the issue because you already pointed it out. It's not feasible. You know, I'm assuming that is the financial, not feasible. So, but the time is also is another money. Starting from the Planning Commission approve this project, that is the last October 19 to today, already in the 3 months. This is a project where cost, conservative to say, maybe in the 40 million or 50 million, even more, I don't know. If in the 40 millions, interest, if you got a loan from the, the bank, that is $2 million. Right now, we wasted 3 months. Why? Let these valuable the money is running away. So that is when you make the feasibility studies, I would suggest also look at this. Also, I very much appreciate the vision from our community and our staff given a lot of the options. Here the options I really appreciate. That is the D. I just ask the question. If the developer would like to build a new constructions and for the housing, that is fine. You can make the deduction for the current deficit, that is 22,193 square feet, you can reduce. But I would like to see that is a new development, as not convert and make the numbers from the regular residential to affordable. That is the make a game on the numbers. I really don't want to see. If the developer check your inventory, if you do have some warehouse or the vacant office, want to change it to the residential, of course, with the reasonable part, with the required part for affordable housing, I want to support this. Whatever, when we today step out from this room, either appeal and got a success or not a success, or return it down. I think this is a victory for the developer and also for our community as well. Thank you so much, Mayor Kim.
All right, thank you.
Is it possible to ask the applicant a few questions, or is that something that would be opening up the public a whole again?
You can ask the applicant questions at the discretion of the mayor.
Please. Thank you. Question number one, you made the comment earlier about that you are committed to exploring the opportunity of possibly some off-site development or off-site housing opportunities. Do you have any additional vision for that without, great specificity, but what that might look like or what you see that could happen given your knowledge and lay of the land in Sonoma?
Yeah, I mean, we own other properties that we're considering. We've also been in escrow on another property that we may bring back. It's a little premature to get very specific about that. In one case, we are working with a low-income developer to not just bring the minimum required, or 20 or 25%, but to over-deliver in that aspect. So, the compromise on the table sort of opens the door for us to do that and do it in a big way. This is something, contrary to some of the comments, when we introduced this project, it was very commonplace to give waivers on housing. In fact, most commercial projects got the waiver. So we had asked for it. We've been consistent for 12 years on that. We did propose the addition of the 8 units in response to that. We would like to explore other alternatives for doing something even bigger than what we've actually are planning to build on the property. So it's premature, council member, to get into the details on that, other than I will say that our company has a record in this county of delivering housing in a big way. Right now, the Journeys Inn Mobile Home Park is being built 100% low income with Burbank Housing on entitlements that we did. We also rezoned industrial land behind the printing plant at Sonoma Media for 24 unit an acre residential. Now, nobody's talking about that. Nobody's talking about the track record of our company. Nobody's talking about the low income housing being built on Treasure Island right now. We do have a track record of success, and we are a good developer. We're a local developer. This hotel is the right project in the right spot, and it creates a lot of income for this city. And I actually agree with one of the comments in terms of your ability to maybe reshuffle the deck on where that new revenue goes. And that's a policy decision for another day. But when this hotel's built, that tax spigot keeps on giving. And the union jobs, I'm glad one speaker got up to mention that. There's not a union hotel in this town. This will be the first one. And we're very proud of that. We didn't do that to win the day tonight. That's been on our docket for 12 years. So we're a good, responsible developer, and we will work hard with the community to over-deliver on the housing front if asked.
All right, thank you for that. You have more questions?
Well, I did have a second question, but with your lengthy answer, you answered my second question, so I have no more.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rupert.
Oh.
Ron, would you like to continue your discussion or with the council? Yes, you may.
Okay, I'll jump in the pool. My father threw me in the deep end before I realized what was going on in the world, so I'm happy to do that again. So I really respect every concern everybody has about this project. I've talked to a lot of people, and I tend to get, on a basis of who I'm talking about, it ends up being about 50-50. There's a lot of people I haven't talked to. But for the, people are either very much in favor or very much against. And I think that there's a lot of, attachment to this project in regards to its history and how it's come through. And so I actually believe that first of all, I do want to thank the work that staff has done. I think the work staff has done is very, very good. I really appreciate that. I think the solution that they've come up with is fair. And I think it's fair because I think I agree with what our director of community development said, is that we are not setting a new precedent. The other thing I want to address is the issue of affordable housing. I think there is not a single person up here that is not looking for and working and meeting with people and talking to as many developers and as many nonprofit organizations and nonprofit developers as we can to come up with solutions for affordable housing. I think we all know the difference between, 2 million and 1 million is not going to change or address our affordable housing issue. I think what we have to think about is what are the other aspects of this building, of the project, that are beneficial to the city. And I know there's a lot of cons. I mean, if this goes through, as soon as construction starts, everybody's going to be complaining about, the noise, the traffic, all of that. But if this does not go through, something is going to go there. If they decide that they're going to take the entitlements and sell the property, somebody's going to build something there. So I would prefer that whoever is building something there be local, be someone that has made commitments in the past to the city that have been beneficial to our community. And I also that it would be, for me, that it would be a union hotel is extremely important. There's two ways to address housing. It's not just lowering the prices of housing, it's also increasing the amount of money people are making. And that is 62 union jobs. And that's very, very important. I'm very concerned about the climate implications. I also realize that but I have to look at really overall, what does this mean? If someone comes to Sonoma to go to this hotel is not there, what they're going to do is they're going to come to Sonoma, they're going to hang out at the plaza, and then they're going to go stay someplace else. Then they're going to drive to Napa, they'll go to Sonoma on the way to Healdsburg. Because I've had to find a hotel for many, many friends here in the middle of the summer and haven't been able to find anything. And if this lowers the prices of hotel rooms, I'm actually quite happy with that. And I also think it's important for people when they look at revenue, that revenue is gross revenue. It's not net revenue. So, revenue is related to expenses too. And so you have to do the analysis. And I love that. And bring the analysis to me and say, yeah, it's X number of revenue and we're anticipating it's going to be this net income, and then they can afford it. But we can't use the argument of just revenue. So I understand that the size is of concern. I think that, I don't have the expertise to analyze what that's going to do, so that would be a question that I would have. Also for the developer in regards to the analysis in regards to these number of rooms and what they've done, in regards to how that, supports their feasibility of being able to make money off of the hotel. I realize it's bigger than other places, but actually Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Napa, Healdsburg, who else is it? Cloverdale now is, not Cloverdale, excuse me, Calistoga is now building a number of new hotels. And most of them are bigger than this project. So I care about all of this, but I'm really trying to look in the long term, what is the best benefit to the city from a financial point of view? And how do we get housing done? And I think having a commitment, although they may not go through with it, that's possible. That we're developing partnerships with developers, and with them working with nonprofit developers to do other projects. So I'll go ahead and start the discussion. And it's been very difficult, I will say, to go through, look at all of this, listen to everybody. Difficult in the sense that I have very strong values about equity. I have very strong values about climate. But in the end, I'm trying to look down the road. What are the end benefits that this could provide? And in talking with many of the business owners around the plaza, many of them were very supportive of this because there's concern. There's 4 vacant, or soon to be at least 4 vacant businesses or storefronts on the plaza. This could potentially bring more incentive for other businesses, so we have a more vibrant plaza. Sorry to have gone on so long.
That's okay. Catch your breath.
Thank you.
Ms. Lowe.
Thank you. And thank you to everybody who wrote, who showed up, and so forth. I appreciate all the comments that were made. 12 years is a long time to work on something. And the reason I asked early on about the size of the project, it's definitely gotten smaller from what the original concept was. I think that shows that the applicant it was committed to work with us and all along. And but it's been a long road. I don't see this as setting any sort of precedent, regardless. It's such a unique situation. In the big picture about housing, and many of you know I do work in politics for my job, and I'm working on a ballot measure that will lower the threshold for passing housing bond because we desperately need housing. And my clients are nonprofit housing developers throughout the state of California. So I don't just talk about this. This is my daily work. This is what I look at every single day. I read every single article about housing every single day. And I'm committed to trying to get us on the right track as a state regarding housing. It's a big picture thing for me. What happened so many years ago is we used to have money as a municipality. It's called redevelopment. And we were able to build, government was able to build housing. That went away. And as a result, people had to get creative. And now they turn to private industry and saying, okay, now it's your job to build housing. And throughout the state of California, municipality after municipality are struggling with the same problem that we are here tonight. We're asking them to build housing because we don't have the resources to build it, and holding them hostage, if you will, for if you want your project, you've got to give us this housing, and we've got these RHNA numbers, and it's a very precarious situation. But over and over again, there was a big project in San Francisco recently, waivers have occurred because people are walking away from the projects because that's not what they got in the business of doing. It wasn't their business. And in fact, we have an applicant here who unbelievably actually is in both businesses, who has this 8D thing about construction of multi-family housing. And that's a gift because there's no way just through, as was previously mentioned, through the inclusionary policies that we have, will we ever be able, with our budget, to build the housing that we are required to have under the state mandates. I think that's an amazing opportunity, and it's not coming from an organization that's never done it before. So I have confidence in that they're able to work with the nonprofit housing developers and create this housing. I think that would be an incredible boon to this community. So we want a lot of things, and we ask a lot of everyone in this town. But at some point, after 12 years, you have to say, we've got a good deal. We've got the deal. And we have to move forward. It doesn't mean we can't come back and add some of the environmental things that were proposed. I think that's interesting. And I don't think it says we can't. It doesn't mean that we can't have further discussions regarding what our policies are regarding tenant protections. I think those are still on the table for us as a community to look at. I don't think we're throwing any of that away by approving this project. And I want to thank everybody for their patience over the years in trying to work out something that helps everyone. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Welander.
Yes, actually, I had a third question. Could I just ask the applicant to come forward again for a third brief question?
This is highly unusual, but yes, I will allow it.
I appreciate that. So the question I have, and one of the things I've discovered is the bureaucracies tend to move extremely slow. And regardless of whether we're talking about $1 million or $2 million or beginning to receive the TOT, please give me your best timeline if you are granted the ability to go forward. What does that look like to you?
Let me just say thank you. I am actually the developer. There's a lot of reference. Bill's my partner, but I'm the one that put up the money, and I work right across the street. My office is there. And so I want to say to the staff, you guys did an amazing job. This has been a very difficult process for everybody. I want to do a shout out to Larry, because Larry started this, and 12 years, it was not only the ballot initiative, and it wasn't downsizing it, but if you recall, the historic nature, they didn't like the design. So we redesigned the whole building and the facade. And Michael Ross did a very, very great job at coming up with something that matches the character and content of Sonoma, and I'm very proud of that new design. if we are approved, I'm committed that we will work as fast as we can. We have 3 things that we have to do: construction documents, because we have to finalize those, because we haven't spent the money, because we haven't had a full approval yet to do that. We've got to go ahead and finish up our financing. And there's been a lot of references about us walking away or running away or not going ahead and doing this. And as the guy that wrote the check to go ahead and do this from day one, I'm fully committed to Sonoma. I'm going to go ahead and get this thing done. And I'm very proud of what we've been able to go ahead and do. So we will start, I'm hoping to go ahead and be in the ground by 25, because it will take us a period of time to go through the design documents and everything else, but we will be under construction in 25.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I guess if my memory serves me, I believe it was back in December said that it might be about a 18 to 20 month construction period.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
Date 27.
I want to likewise thank everybody for their interest in this project, and this gives me satisfaction on sitting up here on council, knowing that I do represent a community that cares about the community. So I want to sincerely thank everybody. Having said that, too, I know there was some criticism that why did we throw this back into the lap of the staff to negotiate? Well, I am not apologetic for that, because I don't feel capable or competent to sit into a negotiation on a project like that. And I think that that was the correct route to go. One of the realities that keeps coming back to me is that our small town, as beautiful as it is, historic as it is, has no industry. We don't have any industry, which could be, as one of the comments from the community said, to add another stream of revenue. It would be nice not to put all our eggs in one basket. But I look at our zoning map. I don't see any opportunity for what I call significant industry. I don't think the county is going to allow us to annex 8th Street, and I really don't know what that might bring to us. But I see that as a big challenge, and it's something that I don't think we are going to be able to make much of a difference, significant change to that. I've heard rumors about doing some micro business type, trying to lure smaller type of industry. But in terms of true industry, we're not like Petaluma. We're not like Santa Rosa. So I do take seriously consideration of additional revenue opportunities. The reason I asked for the speculative schedule was that I am interested in knowing when we might be receiving any type of in lieu, or when we might be receiving any TOT. We're still out there, but at least it's encouraging that we have this potential. And I also believe that even though this doesn't significantly solve our housing problems, what it does do, at least in very simplistic terms, is the TOT is going to increase our revenue. And as one of the speakers also said, that right now we have no funding for climate issues. Well, if we're getting more in the general fund, and that's something that rises to the level that we want to make more investments, then this TOT may be one avenue that may help us do that. So I see that as a positive. Although I sat on the Planning Commission, but I did not sit on the Planning Commission during the early years of this project. I've looked at it, and there has been discussion and concerns about scale. Just in my background, I don't share that concerns. We do have other 3-story buildings within our community. So that at least is my perspective. I am encouraged by the comment that the applicant is willing to investigate opportunities for other more significant housing opportunities. I do want to go on the record that I do not support the 8 units that are being built at this particular place. And even though there may be some interest in downsizing, I don't believe this is the type of housing that I'm working hard to see become a reality, that it is invariably going to be potentially be a second or third home where they will be infrequent visitors. Those aren't the kind of people that I'm trying to work extremely hard to create housing. So I am encouraged to think that there may be an opportunity to get more aggregate, larger housing elsewhere off-site. I see that as a plus. So at this point, I am recognizing there are more positives in terms of seeing this thing move forward than the anticipated negatives. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Wellender. Now it's my turn. Oh, boy. I'll try not to repeat what others have said that I particularly agree with. But I do want to say, when we last heard this issue, and when we asked staff to meet with the developer and negotiate, at that point, it was my sense that there was support for this project. And the problem was, it was the conditions that we were struggling with. And so we asked for it to go back to staff. They sat down with the developer. And this is the kind of activity that I'd like to think culturally as a community that we would be willing to do. And when we ran for office, what we heard was, oh my God, this city is horrible to deal with. And whether it was the planning commission or whether it was city staff, and it's very easy, having been a former government employee, it's very easy to become a gatekeeper rather than a person who is willing to really sit down and work with people and help them be successful. And that's one of the things that I would like to see more of in this community is how do we work with business owners? How do we work with developers? How do we find the solution that's going to benefit both parties but give us what we need in terms of a community for the long run? And so my hat goes off to the staff for sitting down and bringing back this particular negotiated proposal. You know, housing is critical. We've heard it. We know it. And I think that there's a solution somewhere, but it really has a dollar sign attached to it. And I have no idea where those dollars are going to come from. And what we can do as a small community really is a drop in the bucket for what it's going to take to develop meaningful housing. And so in a case like this, when we have a developer that's expressing interest in developing the kind of housing that we're actually talking about, that's pretty exciting. And again, yes, it may or may not happen, but it's always nice to sit here and look at the developer in the face and say, I'm going to rely on that. So there you go. With regards to setting precedent, heard that a lot. And again, I look at this as a one-off, quite frankly. I mean, we do have in lieu fee. We adopted that. There are no other projects that potentially are going to run up against this. And so I don't see this setting precedent. This is actually probably making right something that should have been corrected, maybe even before it came to public hearing the first time. But I think we had to act on that to make that happen. So I am pro-business in the sense that this community needs new vitality. I think this hotel has the potential to bring a new life to the plaza, to the businesses around the plaza. Gives us the opportunity to really start looking at some of the other things that could be potentially beneficial to the community. It starts pushing us down the West Napa Street corridor so that we can start looking at what else can we do. And so I like the project, and I'm glad we were able to find a satisfactory middle ground. And Yeah, I would have liked $100 per square foot, but, you know, in this case, I think it's fair to go with 50. And so with that, I'm going to look at my fellow council members and call for a motion.
I move approval of the resolution 9.1.
Can you repeat your the motion again?
Yes, I move approval of the resolution. Did I say the wrong number? Yes, I did. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Ding, for catching me. 8.1.
8.1.
Yes, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Do we need to read the resolution into the record?
No, we do not.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm not able to agree because we already mentioned about, and we have already have the housing element, that one, and also we got approved not a very long time ago, and in last August we passed through the $100 a square foot, and if minor flexibility is if the developer could can build a new additional and housing and the buildings or multiple family and apartment, I wouldn't agree. And then in this way, we can subtract the additional, the new square footage from the deficit right now is in 22,193. Square foot.
Mr. Ding,
Mayor,
Mr.
point
Ding,
of order.
Yes, we have a motion on the table.
I need a second.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, just to clarify for the record, I don't see that it's called Resolution 8.1, so if I'm correct, Councilmember Lowe, it was the recommended resolution.
Yes, the recommended resolution in item 8.1.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you. So now there can be discussion on the
Okay,
motion.
so the motion and the second stands. Any further discussion?
I just want a little clarification from Councilmember Ding on exactly what he's requesting and how that would amend the motion.
Yes, basically, I support original. The planning commission is $100 per square feet. But here, I would like to support a little bit of flexible. That means that is a D. I just in the class verified with our staff that if that is additional than the new units, new square footage, I will support. But I will not change our and the lieu fees amount from the $100 to $50. But I do have the flexibility. I want to see if the developer could, produce more than housing. Of course, the housing is more important. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ding. Anything else before we call for the vote? Roll call vote.
Councilmember Wellender?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
No.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-1.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to the regular calendar. Item. Oh, my God. Excuse me, I think we need to take a 5-minute break. For Ron, it's 4.
beep in the elevator when my grandmother lived, or Bob's Cafe.
Sears.
Third floor. Better glass.
All right, let's reconvene, please. Okay, we will return to the regular calendar, and we have item 9.1, a resolution accepting the climate action strategies. And Ms. Gates.
All right. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. So before you tonight is the climate action strategies. This is a document of love, and I have a support group over here and over here from our Climate Action Commission members and others that are interested in this activity tonight. So I'm going to give you a little background on where we've been, where we are, what we're proposing tonight for your consideration. Helps if I turn it on. All right. So in November of 2020, the City Council adopted a climate emergency resolution. That resolution established a net zero GHG emissions for no later than 2030. In April of 2022, City Council created a Climate Action Commission. In between that time, the city had hired a sustainability coordinator, Travis Wagner, who is unfortunately no longer with the city. He has retired, but a lot of his efforts around helping reduce emissions and other climate action activities he has participated in and helped with bringing forward to City Council for approval. A lot of those climate actions are provided to you in the back of the climate action strategy document itself. So I didn't want you to think that nothing has happened since April 2020. So in February 8th of 2023, the initial meeting of the Climate Action Commission, and they identified a preliminary list of priority climate actions. They had already been working on this. In August 9th, the CAC finalized that list, and in September, the city posted that draft and began our public comment period. In October, the public presentation and solicitation of comments occurred. We opened it for 30 days to receive comments from the community on the climate action strategies as proposed. And then on November 8th, this Climate Action Commission unanimously approved recommendation to City Council to accept the document. So before you is a lovely table that shows from 1990 to 2020, looking at the GHG emissions for Sonoma itself. 2020 we call kind of an anomaly. We all know what that was. It's called COVID. And that's why you see that reduction occurring. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like when the new numbers come out in 2023 or for 2023. And so when we look at that, we'll get some better idea of where our back to normal numbers will be. Again, majority of Sonoma's emissions are in the transportation category. I think we all talked about that earlier today, as well as a lot of the time looking at our transportation impacts on greenhouse gas emissions. Buildings is another large one. And then last, solid waste, and then water and wastewater. This is a table showing the annual per capita greenhouse gas emissions. And you can see we do have a reduction in per capita. So the climate action strategy was developed in 3 phases. First is to identify our actions to reduce greenhouse gas to achieve that net zero. We need to identify preventative actions to address negative impacts of climate change, and then also address how the city will adapt and improve its resilience to our climate hazards. We are still in number 1. We're going to talk about some of those aspects of number 2 and 3 as we continue to go through our general plan update process. So we are going to be looking at sustainability and climate adaptation. So the actual strategy planning process is the inventory of our greenhouse gas emissions, which you see in the beginning of your document. Establish that reduction target, which was done through the emergency resolution. Identify the actions to achieve that topic, and then adopt. So we are in step number 4, which is the adoption of actions to achieve our target. The overview of the layout, we have a background. Again, it establishes what that need is, provides what activities we've undertaken to date, as well as our planning process. We look at our inventory for greenhouse gas, and then we have a set of recommended climate actions and implementation strategies. And these are related to where we're seeing the most greenhouse gas emissions. So transportation, buildings, solid waste, water. Then we also are looking at a specific section dedicated to government operations, which we have the most ability to impact, and then carbon sequestration. So on the next number of slides, there are a number of actions that we're proposing, as well as kind of a summary of what that would look like. I'm not going to read all of them to you because we would be here all night, but hopefully if you read some of them, I will highlight some. And I want to also stress that the climate action plan, or climate action strategies in this case, are connected to other activities that we are doing in the city already. So a good example of that is this first one. So the master plan for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, something that we've already talked about with the council and our parking management plan. So there is this connectivity between what's being proposed tonight in the climate action strategies as well as other planning activities, and will be further analyzed and looked at as we continue our general plan update. Another key one would be to, include downtown bicycle parking, something we're already working on, and cool corridors, which are to enhance the number of trees and things to enhance that coolness of our bicycle corridors. Another transportation related is the electrification of our personal transportation. So making more publicly accessible EV charging stations as the number of EV vehicles have increased in the city. Also looking at the downtown shuttle, whether it's electric or other options around that. Also, the look at the potential to ban new fossil fueling stations. Also, another ordinance to consider in the future potentially is to ban any new drive-throughs. So on the building actions, we're looking at different activities that reduce reliance on our natural gas, as well as increasing community energy efficiency by providing education around energy efficiency. So let's not just replace our windows, but also look at where we're actually having the most leakage from our building. So maybe we actually need insulation. Also looking at increased installation of our solar program. So we've already put in a new solar permitting process in the city. And so that's one way in which we are potentially increasing the installation of PV solar. So looking at expanding our outreach and accessibility to certain programs. Solid waste, we're looking at increasing our minimum waste practices in our city facilities and help reduce waste generated overall. We'll be in the process currently looking at our solid waste franchise agreement and such. Also wanted to look at, we do have a state bag fee requirement, so any necessary enforcement, the potential to adopt a plastic bag ordinance. Again, any ordinance would come back to City Council. This is an opportunity for City Council to provide direction on if you do not want to move forward with certain policies. This is the time to tell us so we don't continue to work on these. But any policy direction, any necessary funds to implement any of these projects would come back to council for approval. A key one that I think all of us have talked about too is increasing our water bottle filling stations around the city. Another one could be enforcement of our ban on disposable food serviceware. On water, we're looking at expanding and modifying the Cash for Turf program that's currently there. Also, creating rainwater capture systems within our government buildings, or increasing the availability of rainwater capture within our private properties as well. So in the government side, think of everything I just talked about and then applying it to our government buildings. So creating EV charging stations, adding solar where appropriate. We have solar here. Also looking at installing our vacancy lighting sensor. So if we leave a room, the lights actually will turn off after a certain period of time instead of us accidentally leaving lights on throughout our buildings. So other opportunities around that. I'm going to skip on. So looking at the carbon sequestration actions, the Climate Action Commission members are the most knowledgeable on the science and things. I'm just helping present where we're at. So don't ask any questions specific to this, but they all know these. So one of the proposed actions is the urban tree shade canopy assessment. Also looking at identifying where we can plant more trees. How do we get more trees within our city to help with carbon sequestration? Also looking at compost and the continued science of biochar into the future. What does that look like? And then lastly, staff is recommending that City Council adopt the resolution that was presented to you, accepting the climate action strategies as recommended by our Climate Action Commission. And staff is available to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Council, any questions of staff?
Yes. Just to carry on an earlier conversation, so at this point, the strategy is just that. There's nothing that when we give you the wink tonight that says anything ordinance-wise or mandates are coming into play. Is that correct?
That is correct. So what you would be doing is doing strategies. In each section, there was different activities that would be undertaken for each one of those actions that we just talked about. And so, for an example, any adoption of an ordinance, we'd be doing looking at other similar ordinances in the area. How does that apply to Sonoma? Developing that, and then going through the process, which would end with City Council being the adopter.
So one of the things that I guess the best word to say I'm befuddled by, and that is that our state has adopted zero net for 2045, and our previous council said 2030. And as I understand, there have been other municipalities within our county that have adopted the zero 2030, but limited to city projects or city buildings, whatever. What I would love to see is that if this is truly a goal that we want and secures, I would like to see a scenario that suggests if we do this, based upon what we currently know, how are we going to get there? Because I'm confused why we personally, locally, think we are smarter than Sacramento, and where Sacramento is going 245 and we're going 230. So I'll be open-minded on it, but I would like to see, as part of this strategy, tell me what this is going to look like in order to get to that point.
So the next steps with the strategies were designed to get us started, get us starting to talk about things, give some work plan for the Climate Action Commission, as well as staff to work towards the 2030 that was set a while ago. We are in the process of doing our general plan update. There will be additional discussions around climate action, sustainability, as well as additional studies around greenhouse gas emissions and other topics similar to that. When that is finalized, we'll take that information and move forward with more in the direction of what you're talking about with a climate action plan. So with each strategy, it'll actually identify what that reduction goal would be with that.
So my only frustration with that is when you told me, or with the staff, you basically said, in order for us to get our general plan update, it's a 2-year process. So add 2 years to 2024 is 2026. That gives us 4 years to hit our target.
So the target could change, right? So because we're going to understand what our current situation is and what's realistic. So the target could change. It could be changed from 2030 to 2045, like you're talking about, consistent with the state. It doesn't mean that we hold the 2030 with a new climate action plan, because we'll understand where we're at with our greenhouse emissions and what's realistic in how we move forward.
So it's this, I have a question along this,
Please, continue.
just jumping in. And so I like this plan. I think it's good. It lays out a number of different options that can be pursued. And I think also when we set our goals, there could be, as a city council, we could look at some potential goals that are shorter term that then will actually affect budget, where we can direct some budget dollars in this direction to achieve some of these. My other question, and I feel like I feel remiss that I did not notice this earlier, but we're really looking at mostly mitigation, and I think we also need to be looking at adaptation. And there's a lot that crosses over between mitigation and adaptation that are very similar, but so in this plan, this is focused on mitigation, so I would like to see, direct the commission to also look at what are the adaptation strategies that need to be taken. So for example, recapture water to refill our aquifers. So what are the things that actually are, because unfortunately, I think that Ron brings up a very good point. We're at this stage now with climate where, yes, we want to mitigate the effects, but we're actually at the stage where we have to think about like what is happening, what's potentially going to happen, and what's threatening us, and what are the adaptation measures that we're doing that, yes, while we're lowering our greenhouse gases, we're still going to be significantly affected by the current climate situation. So I was looking for, is there a way for this to be in this strategy? And I'm just not sure what the best process is. I think maybe that's the next work for the commission is, what are some of the adaptation goals, or, when we meet at city council for our, around our city goals, when we state our, if we prioritize climate, that we prioritize it as both mitigation and adaptation.
I would recommend for the strategies right now, it gives us something to start with, and the climate adaptation is something that the Climate Action Commission can start to focus on and work on, and that is what is incorporated in our general plan goals.
Okay. Oh, one other point. So I also, in regards to all of these, and there's no language in regards to this, I think it'd be really important that in anything that we are doing as far as any of these strategies, we're also taking into account an equity lens. So it's looked through that lens of, how are these affecting people in our community? Is it, how are we supporting low-income communities, so that that are less capable of doing things that may need to be done? Those are my 2 comments.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ding, I think you have something to ask.
My question is how often we come back to review it?
To review this?
Yeah, every year we go back, or every in the 2 years. Do you have any?
Technically, I think it says every year, not in the strategies, but actually in the resolution. So I think it's been a while since we've presented what's occurred, so we can do that.
Thank you. Good to know.
Ms. Lowe?
So I think this is a great report. I sort of look to the vice mayor for her guidance, and she seems to really know a lot about this, which is great. Something that I know a little bit about, but not very much, is the subject of trees. Only because 12 years ago, I came to this city council to ask them to save all the trees in my neighborhood, which were scheduled to all be eliminated because they buckled the concrete. And I told them, you can take the concrete, leave the trees. They didn't want to make me that deal. I don't know why. I thought it was a good deal. But it was we did manage to save the trees in the neighborhood. And they get, kind of butchered by the folks that PG&E hires to trim them. They're not, they go through phases. They don't look very nice, but they're trees. And we, the people, it's important. I also spent a lot of time in Sacramento, and that is a tree city. And the canopy, if any of you have ever flown into Sacramento, the tree canopy in Sacramento is amazing. And Sacramento being a very, very hot place in the summer, it provides a lot of shade. So I'm interested in anything related to the trees. I speak for the trees, if you will. And I especially would like to see them in places where it's hot, and that is the west side of town, going down West Napa Street. It's very hot to walk down on that street. And I've walked down there and taken pictures and sent it to the city manager saying, this would be a great place for a tree or a little parklet. I mean, it's sort of my MO. I take pictures of stuff and say, see this? This would work really well right here. So I'd like to see more of that, and because I think it would do a lot to the world is getting warmer. It will help people, and then if it's shady, they'll walk, which will also help. So anything related to trees, I'm all in. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other council comments?
I would just say, Mayor Lowe, that's a perfect example of an equity lens that you would look at, because there's significant work, and everybody that was on these ad hoc commissions did a lot of work. So thank you all too, not just for the and strategy, but those are examples when you're looking at an equity lens, where in the city are most of the trees and where should we have more trees. And there's a lot in this supporting the development for under sequestration. That's where you look for it.
All right, thank you. Public comment.
We have two hands raised. We'll do the chambers first. We have two hands raised after that.
Very good. Mr. Mora?
As the chair, are we on? Yeah. As the chair of the commission, let me start it off. Some of my colleagues are here. I don't want to violate any Brown Act standards, but we're in public, so we're fine. We've been a long process. We had a Community Services and Environment Commission. We then had a joint commission with two council members and myself and a colleague who's in this room tonight, Mr. Fred Allerbach, as a joint climate action committee. And now we have a 5-member commission and a youth member who's here with us this evening as well, who I'm eager to have you hear from, particularly about trees and especially perhaps soon at Sonoma Valley High School, some new trees, funded by CAL FIRE. That gets me to this point. A plan is a plan. We're interested in climate action, and the name of our commission is the Climate Action Commission. We love to have a plan, and then we intend to bring you action items, one after another. Hopefully not always after a long hotel discussion, but we've had commission meetings here later than we are this evening, so we know how this feels up there. A long way to go, but we're at a starting point now, hopefully with your approval this evening, finally, of our plan, a strategy document. We propose to move forward on a number of fronts. City funding would be lovely. Restaffing the sustainability coordinator, either half-time or full-time, would be lovely. There's a lot of state and federal money. The discussion we'll have briefly about trees at the Sonoma Valley High School site, I just learned today, CAL FIRE will be funding that. We are not going to be relying only on actions that can be funded by the city. Moreover, we're not only going to be relying on city actions. We have 10,000 actors called citizens, and we're going to be doing extensive public outreach, citizen involvement, so that they take the brunt of the actions that are needed. In addition, there's a great deal of federal money, and we know how to get it, and once this strategy document is finally, bless you, approved this evening, we can start looking for that kind of money. There's potential money to go heavily on solar throughout the city with federal reimbursement 100% of our cost frames. We can work with Sonoma Clean Power, our electricity agency, and we can find ways to encourage a much higher number of our citizens to pay a little more, roughly $13 a month is the average delta increment, to move to the all renewable source of their electricity in their homes, making a big difference. I've talked already this evening about vehicle miles traveled and the signals we send with the hotel decision. We can have similar signals with the approval of major citizen events at the plaza. What are the GHG emissions of that? How do we encourage people to be coming in carpools, in electric vehicles, and so on, by moving ahead as we approve these exciting events on the plaza to recognize they have climate impacts? Across the board, these issues matter. We heard a lot this evening about, and appropriately so, about affordable housing. It's a climate issue. If our employees who work in Sonoma can't live here, we have massive vehicle miles traveled. So between trees and climate action and all of these events, what we need is a plan approved so we can start taking action. And I'd like to introduce next our youth commissioner on the Climate Action Commission, and there probably are other commissioners willing to speak this evening as well. Kendall, come on up.
All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kendall Clemens, and I'm serving as the youth non-voting member of the Climate Action Commission. I'm currently a junior at Sonoma Valley High School, and I'm also co-president of our Earth Club. I'm here to represent many youth throughout the city of Sonoma as we demand action against climate change. Last year, I talked to over 75 students at my high school about climate change and what's going on in the city of Sonoma. Out of the 75 students, almost every single one of them experienced climate anxiety. I have a few quotes from the students. I'm scared of what our world might look like for future generations. I'm scared that it will get to a point where there's no turning back and then it'll be irreversible. My primary concern regarding climate change is that we are not going to be able to go back and fix anything anymore. Youth and the members within our community feel scared, yet there continues to be a lack of action in the city of Sonoma. The climate action strategies would provide many environmental benefits to our city. Like David mentioned, one thing that's particularly important to me is the implementation of trees, which we've been working on for my high school. So it's important to take action and do things like we've been doing with this project here. We need to stop making excuses in our local community and hold ourselves accountable for taking action. We have the power to make a difference, and these differences will not only help protect nature and wildlife that are part of Sonoma, but influence other communities and individuals to make a difference. So I urge you today to approve the climate action plan in order to start moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And
I don't know how to follow that, but I'm Phil Heinerman. I'm on First Street West. I've been a part-time resident for 12 years, and now I'm a full-time resident. And I've been an environmental lawyer for 40 years, and helped found the Green Building Council chapter in Pennsylvania for the Philadelphia region. The first thing I've learned tonight, it's my first city council meeting, I have to establish my bona fides. So the Heinerman brothers were Hessian soldiers who came to fight the American revolutionists, which doesn't seem like a good thing, except in the tradition of the Heinerman family, they went AWOL and settled outside of Pittsburgh. So as I've said to Robert, his relatives thought they had to fight. My relatives said, I don't want to do this. So they just left. But I do want to thank you all for taking a chance on me because I'm so relatively new. One of the great things about this group is we have a lot of different expertises, and we're able to provide each other information. Me with buildings, because of the Green Building Connection, I'm a lead accredited person. Back when they used to accredit lawyers, they don't do that anymore because lawyers decided it wasn't any good business to actually be lead accredited and get you any clients. But it also gives us some expertise. We have expertise in each of these areas among all of us. We have people like the vice chair who come to every meeting to keep us in line, and so that's very helpful. But just on a personal note, it's been a real pleasure so far. I'm looking forward to working with these guys and with you all in the future. And again, thanks for taking a chance on somebody like me from the East Coast who actually chose to be here. It wasn't an accident of birth. I chose to live in Sonoma.
Thank you. Please.
I'm newer than him. And I won't tell you, my grandparents came here, so we don't have to go into that. I grew up across the street from the Bronx Zoo. But to the point that you made, my name is Michael Heffler. You're welcome. The point that you made about 2045 and 2030, I think many of the discussions about climate change right now are missing, there's always some underlying point. There's an underlying issue that's bigger than all of these other issues that gets hidden. So you probably noticed, if you follow Wall Street, that all of the oil companies are making huge amounts of money, greater profits than they've ever made before. And it's somewhat of a market-driven product. It's driven by very, very large companies and countries that have a lot of oil. But if you look at solar, it's utility regulated, the price of solar. It's not a fair fight on a very, very basic level. But the underlying issue, that's the greater issue, that if we really want to change the climate for the young people, is that the U.S. government gives hundreds of billions of dollars to the fossil fuel companies every year. It's unseen money that's going into the pockets of the oil companies and affecting the future of our country. And when you ask people, why don't we change this? This is a very straightforward thing. The numbers are straightforward. You were looking at hotel numbers, right? That got a little interesting, but these numbers are well documented and well known. And they're not changed because everyone says, well, you can't change because the Republicans won't let you because they're owned by the oil companies. Now, I'm getting a little political here, I realize, and don't want to get too much off topic, but I want to stay on the topic of if you really want to change the climate issue, that's the way to change it. Get that money that's going free to all these oil companies out of their pockets. That'll make a difference.
Thank you.
Beat you to it, Robert. Fred Allebach. I have a lot of thoughts here. Just a little backstory. Tom can maybe correct me if he's going to come up and speak later. But I think it was in 2017 that the Climate Action 2020 plan came to the county, and that eventually worked its way through the Community Services and Environment Commission. And then that had a bunch of greenhouse gas reduction goals, and then the city made a climate declaration, then hired Travis, and 30 years before that, the UN came out with the Sustainable Development Goals. So there's been like a long time where we've known that there's serious problems, and it seems like it just doesn't seem like anyone's really moving fast enough. And so I think when I was involved in this in the city, it seemed to me that the best we could ask was that if Sonoma did proportionally what a community of this size would do, that would really turn it back, then we would really be an example. So that's if we're going to really change the world, then proportionally Sonoma would have to and I think personally, I think it's too late for mitigation. So just reading the news, the news is hard. You almost have to deny it so that you can get up out of bed and continue to go on. But I think if Sonoma if everyone did that, then we would really be an example. And so I would suggest that in that regard, that you really listen to Tom, because Tom is, really admirable. And when I first met him, he was running Transition Sonoma Valley meetings. And that's when I had just heard about sustainability and triple bottom line, and I was really hot on that. So you got really dedicated people here with David and Tom and Patricia. So and Travis is gone. I could see Travis's hand in those graphs there. And I remember when Travis was hired. And so the wheels have been spinning for a long time, and now you just got a plan. So I think that it's really, like David said, it's time for action and to really get moving on this and to do proportionally what everyone else should be doing, so that then we would really make a difference. And I've kind of moved over into the equity part of sustainability, and because I felt like that was important to voice as well. But I just think it's really a shame what's happening with the world's climate and the world's species, and least you could do is pass the plan.
Thank you.
1706 is following 1648 again, 1607, sorry. Robert Demler, First Street West. I had an idea during this discussion, and there's been a linkage made between affordable housing and transportation and the damage that to our environment that gas-powered autos make to those people who have to commute. That's my entree. Secondly, some of you know that I don't think highly of city governments or state governments getting involved in the affordable housing issue. I think we should make it extremely easy for developers and encourage them and give them all kinds of breaks to do that. But you've passed this ordinance, and so here we go. Why don't you start thinking about working with the business community here, because they do have a number of employees who live elsewhere, and some of them live elsewhere by choice, family relations or whatever, and others by necessity, financial necessity. I don't know, this is very undeveloped. I just had the thought tonight. If you're going to support affordable housing, why don't you start supporting affordable transportation and have business owners lease the electric vehicles if their employee has been there X number of years and they're dedicated, or if they will have a carpool to use that, et cetera. Then if we're going to get involved in the housing business, and again, I have mixed emotions, not totally opposed, but then let's think about transportation as well.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi there, I'm Cedra Nathan again. I came up from San Diego, and in the short time I've been here, I've been elected the president of the Garden Club. I'm on the advisory committee for the garden park at the Sonoma Ecology Center runs. I'm writing grants on behalf of the community to do some of these climate actions that you're asking about. And I'm also reviewing grants as part of the Impact 100 group. So I'm one of those people that got attracted to come here. And so I'm going to speak again about what is it that makes people, why do people come to Sonoma and trying to keep that? And that's tied into urging you to pass this climate action plan, because there's a desire for vitality in Sonoma. I mean, what is it that brings people here that makes this place a place for creatives? And it's because you create the infrastructure that supports people coming here. Now, I heard you talk about what's the future of vitality for Sonoma and what are the industries and the jobs and why would people come here. It's the city itself. That's where you have innovation. That's where you have jobs. And that's where creativity comes from, by the people that come here and creating an environment that is attractive to them. And those things that are desired today, I mean, Kendall did a fabulous job talking about what those insecurities are about, but those are the same ones for people that you're trying to attract to Sonoma. And so making a hospitable environment that shows that you care about that and that you're putting money into things like the Climate Commission, or that you're trying to create green spaces and linkages. So all these issues are sort of false trade-offs between housing and the climate, or green spaces and health, or jobs and pollinator parks. They're embedded. Everything is linked together. And so that's really what we need to be thinking about, is how these issues are linked together, and they amplify and support the character of Sonoma. And this is an umbrella concept. So don't think that the climate initiative in of itself is a standalone. It's an umbrella concept for all the things that we're trying to accomplish in Sonoma that make the character persist and endure for years to come. So that's really my pitch of why I wanted to talk about why this is important. It's not just this plan, it's the whole city. All right, thank you.
Hi again, Tom Conlon, Vice Chair of the Climate Action Commission, and appreciate the opportunity to finally get to present this to you tonight. I sympathize, Councilmember Welander, with the frustration of a 2030 goal, and what scenario gets us to that very aggressive goal. And I forgive all of us for presenting you with a laundry list. I think Jennifer did a good job of hitting the highlights, but it is a daunting list of things we've been discussing. The good news is that we are supported by lots and lots of other policymakers, analysts who are tracking these things, and we have combed through them to come up with the things we think are the priorities. So the things that are italicized and prioritized in this list are the things we hope you will pay attention to and discuss during your goal setting. And when with respect to the ordinances, the things we really think can be done they're things we think can be done quickly. They are things that are templates that have been passed successfully and with public support and with, frankly, even other stakeholder support. I'm talking specifically about the gas station ban and the drive-through window ban. These are no-brainers. They will actually relieve staff of the burden of approving things that we know we don't need in the city of Sonoma. So there may be some ideological opposition to that, but I don't think we should be bogging down in ideology when we all acknowledge that our climate is changing. The other thing that occurs to me as I look over this report again is how if we don't do the mitigation, we are going to find that just like in 2020, when the COVID epidemic hit us, that we're going to be hit by climate impacts that are going to bring us closer to our net zero goal. And that is a very, very scary thing. So I appreciate the comments about adaptation and equity. They are weak in the current plan. We admit that. We know that. We've gotten public comment on that. We do. I just signed up for a workshop in March where I'll be working on adaptation and wildfire matters, which is probably a pretty big deal for us here in the city of Sonoma. But I want you to know that the Regional Climate Protection Authority is working on a matrix of all the climate action plans throughout the county and looking at the elements in them that are most useful. Jennifer helped us convene a workshop with a representative from Petaluma just yesterday, where we went over their blueprint for climate neutrality. Their They've had the opportunity to hire a consultant. They're a bit ahead of us in terms of granular detail and specifics. And I think that overall, when you stack the statewide activities, the regional activities happening coming out of MTC, Metropolitan Transportation Commission, and the Regional Climate Protection Authority, we are in a, it's time for the city to step up and do its relatively small part, and we're working on that for you. So look forward to your goals discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. No more chamber comment?
Yeah, and Mayor, at this time, I'm having some technical issues with allowing Zoom comments. I would request that anybody that does have public comments on this item or any future items tonight to email public comment at sonomacity.org.
All right, thank you. All right, then I will bring it back to the council, and would anybody like to begin? Please. Yes, you may.
I sit on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority Regional Climate Protection Agency. Anyway, I wanted to just draw our attention to the article regarding the expansion of the SMART train. At all of the meetings that I've attended at SCTA, there's a solid group of us who have been advocating strongly for those of us who are not on the 101 corridor, where most things are happening. So, you know, the city of Sonoma, the city of Sebastopol, that we get some extensions of transit into this area. And so I just wanted to say that, you know, there's a lot of things happening. This is great. I'm certainly going to support it. But also I'm supporting the transportation goals as your representative on that body. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comment? Sure. Discussion?
As a landscape architect, when anybody talks about trees, it always pricks my ears up, and I certainly will be supportive of trees, and I'm very happy that that's part of the strategy. I think it's going to be critical regarding the trees, is it's one thing to plant them, but we have to follow up and take care of them, because I have observed many trees within this city that have not performed according to Sunset Garden book and page number, whatever. And I just think that if we truly want to make cooling corridors, or we want to help with the sequestration, which I can't say, we can't just do the feel-good thing of plant a tree and walk away. So that's what I want to kind of reemphasize. And I just want you to know that much to the chagrin of several people in this room, I've been throwing my body around street trees of late, trying to prevent them from being cut down because they, you know, change the orientation of a certain piece of concrete. So that's something that, again, I would love to see the support of the climate people saying that, no, let's see if we can be creative and solve our circulation, paving problems, whatever, other more creative ways. I'm encouraged when David said that our bus that we're funding actually is carrying people. I think that's great, and I think anything that we can do to continue to encourage bus riding, in fact, I'm motivated to actually ride it and see what it is truly like. I also know that, and I'm a little confused because all building projects now have to fall under Cal Green, and those are rather stringent requirements. So I'd like to think that we have been doing that, because every time I file for a permit with the city, they absolutely are mandating the Cal Green ordinance and making sure we comply. So I just think we've got that going for us. I'm a big believer in incentivizing people instead of creating mandates, and I would love to see us all kind of take a personal role of setting examples of what we should be doing and doing it. I have observed down through the years the cash for grass has worked reasonably well. I've heard countless number of people say they want to take advantage of it, but I think we can do more. I think there's ways that we can actually now subsidize or give away what I call smart controller, irrigation controllers, because I believe without a shadow of a doubt, our water waste has a lot more to do with management or the lack thereof than it does with plant selection. So again, I'm wanting us to be creative and seeing what we can do, thinking outside the box. How can we get recognizing water is a precious commodity? We need to be fully supportive of saving as much as we can. Regarding the trees, I did sit in on a tree committee at some point that talked about, I won't say it right, the Murakami Forest. And I know that at the time when we were all excited to go and grab a shovel and dig, we were told we can't dig because we needed this. Well, what I'm excited about tonight is let's get this, and then let's go get your shovel, and let's start with doing something tangible. I would like to also recognize that if there are grants out there, I'd love to see us be creative and come up with a team for how do we write our grants, how do we pursue it. I was told the other day that the city of Petaluma got, I don't know, some obscene grant for planting trees. I think it was like 500,000 or 250,000, something significant. Why not us? We certainly could use the trees. So again, I would challenge us to try to figure out how we can do that. And overall, I love trees.
All right, thank you. Any other comments?
I would like to mention about on the groundwater because I work for the Sonoma Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency. Yeah, I have been serving over there already in more than 3 years. I think that is very important. As you know, in the last year, we set up our regulation to charge the groundwater, and that is the first time. Although the amount, the rate is not significant, but it's a good start. A lot of people know groundwater is valuable an asset. More we use, the less we have in the reservation. So far, I haven't seen any very effective measure to stop groundwater aquifer and losing. So far, so good, but I haven't seen any very effective measure yet. So right now, we just under the monitoring and the long way to go. And the education always the key, and we have the good habit and save the water, and wisely use the water also is important. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Did you need?
No, I just have one quick, and then we'll let you go. Here. Mr. Mayor. Yeah, one of the things, and I realize sometimes, because I really support this plan, but I also think it's important, I think the whole area of plastics is an area that can be very difficult for people, and people push back on, implementing plastic bans, but it's important, I think, for us to carry through with that. The oil and gas companies, as we all know, the plastics are, in our skin, in our water, they're at Mount Everest, microplastics are everywhere. And it's the industry that the oil and gas companies, as there's, transitioning, recognizing this transition to renewable fuels, they still create, will still drill for oil and gas to make plastic. So, a lot of people don't make that connection of where the plastic, many of the polymers and micropolymers come from. So I think that that's an important thing for us to continue to look at, and I know it's a harder thing to implement, but I think it's a very important thing to implement. And talking about aquifers, that's where the importance of having our adaptation practices. And we do have certain organizations in our lovely city, like Sonoma Ecology Center, that have received significant grants for putting trees on schools. So we have people in the community that know how to get that money. So it's true. We need to be focusing more on getting, because there's a lot of money out there right now for a lot of the things that we're doing.
All right, thank you. My turn. First of all, congratulations on developing the strategy document. I refuse to call it a plan because plans end up sitting on shelves oftentimes and never get the attention they deserve. I see a lot of opportunity here. I'll call it low-hanging fruit. You can call it whatever. I look forward to having these things starting to come to us regularly so that we can move forward. Anthony, the Vice Mayor mentioned plastics, and I was hoping nobody would mention plastic. Ironically, I think environmental issues are starting to gain some real traction. I'm president of the Morning Rotary Club. In our last two meetings, we had two speakers. Rotary has actually a international environmental effort underway. It's called Plastic Soup, and it has to do with the plastic that's in the oceans and waterways, and very fascinating work that they're doing. And then this last meeting this week, we had one of our local citizens in the valley. He gets up, actually lives in the city, he gets up every day, and at some point during the day, he goes out and picks up trash. And you may have even seen him around town with his 5-gallon bucket and his little clippy thing to pick up trash. And it was just fascinating to hear why he does that. It had to do with how he was raised and how much he loves this community. And he actually is Swedish, I think it is. And he's just amazed at how much trash there is out there. And he's out there picking up trash. So, you know, and both of those things are interesting at best, I suppose. But what it says to me, because I've talked to Rotary members who have said that they actually changed the way they're thinking about how they drink water now. They're thinking differently about what they get at the grocery store in terms of packaging. And so when you start hearing that, I am hopeful that we are on a track that's going to benefit the entire community. So I love the plan. I am happy to entertain a motion if there is one. Don't make
I
me
would
do
be
it.
very happy to move to accept the client action strategy with an emphasis on action.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote.
Councilmember Wellender.
In the interest of trees, yes.
Councilmember Ding.
Yes.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Ferrer-Rivas.
In the interest of future generations, yes.
Mayor Gurney.
In the interest of anti-plastic, yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, thank you.
Congratulations to this committee. What a good job.
Okay, let's move to item 9.2. A resolution approving the City Council, Commission, and Committee appointment process and introducing an ordinance. Who is presenting said item? Madam City Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mayor Gurney and council members. Tonight, we're bringing back the item that we had met in a special study session on December 6th, and the council provided direction and feedback regarding amendments to the commission and committee appointment process. There were items that were discussed both in the municipal code and the council's appointment policy that were identified by both council members and staff members. Tonight, we're bringing back a updated draft policy and an ordinance based on that feedback. And with that, the way we thought we would go through this is just go through quickly the updated areas and how they were updated. And then if you have questions, If you want to hold those till the interview, it's Bernie. If you'd like to ask it as we go through, please feel free to do so. In the municipal code, the first area that we looked at was the attendance in section 2.40.010. And the reason this was brought forward is because with individual direct appointments, the attendance no longer applied to all members of the commissions and committees. At the time, we had discussed that the language would be modified only to those at-large members that the council appoints as a majority. The second area was the composition, and it's there's multiple sections that are updated. And the idea brought forward because the composition of the commissions wasn't consistent. You had 2 that had 7 members, and the others had 5 members. So with that discussion, we brought back a modified language that in the municipal code that would make all commissions 7-member boards. It also clarified that the direct appointees would be residents of the city, and at least 1 at-large member should be a resident or shall be a resident of the Sonoma Valley. And the reason that we went forward with adding in the language on direct appointments being residents of the city was when it was originally adopted, the policy, the 5 direct appointees were required to be qualified electors of the city. And so using that logic, it was with the city residents would also be direct appointees. And as we'll discuss a little bit later, there was a desire to continue the at-large or the Sonoma Valley member on the commission. And so when we reviewed the ordinance, rather than making it saying that it could only be 1 member, we changed the language so that at least 1 member shall be, and if the council chose to have 2, they had the option to be able to do that. The next one was the definitions, types of commissions and committees. It was the updating the lettering convention so that city commissions and committees are primary. The other thing that we also did as we were going through this policy, we realized that there were some terms that were not identified or defined as to what they were. So we changed the section to just definitions, and we expanded the list of terms that were defined. The fourth item was the mayoral appointment process. The reason we had brought this forward was that there was a different appointment process for the group at the time, the Group A appointments, which if you go through this, it'll be now. Those are the regional and valley appointments. And in order to simplify, which was one of the goals of reviewing this, we suggested making the appointments to the regional and valley appointments in the same way that the council makes the at-large and the youth member, and that's by a council majority vote at a regular meeting. So we included that. The next area was the individual council member appointments. The reason we had brought this forward is there was a set time when those appointments were made, and they were considered as an agendized item separately. With the council changing to a direct appointment at any time, we set it in that we changed the language in the policy so that it says that those appointments can be made at any time during council members' comments on that section of the agenda. It doesn't require formal action of the council or ratification. And if a council member chose to run and was reelected again, that their members that they've directly appointed would not have to seek reappointment unless the council member wanted to make a change. And the reason on number 6, we brought that because the currency policy was what was stated in the current policy. And we suggested, there was a suggested update there that section be removed because with the implementation of the direct appointments being able to be made at any time, it was no longer necessary. Another item that was discussed was the role and the need for the alternate members. In the policy, this section was updated based on council feedback to remove the position of alternate. and with the increase of members on all commissions to 7, it wasn't, that was part of the reasoning. Number 8 was the non-voting youth member terms. We brought this forward because that didn't seem that the August appointment date was effective because students a lot of times weren't available to turn in applications. Most of the time they were visiting or vacationing or getting ready for school. So we suggested a October appointment date. And then the other thing was changing the term to 2 years so that the members and the youth members were able to have full participation in the projects as they were moving forward. The other things that were asked at the study session was that to have the youth members vote, however, their vote would not count towards the final outcome of the motion. And we also memorialized the youth members' attendance did not count towards the establishment of a quorum. Let's see. So some of the items that were introduced at the special meeting or the study session was the frequency of commission meetings. And there was an interest in increasing the number of commission meetings to allow the different commissions to move forward with their project work. And in the municipal code, it says that there will be 4 regular meetings of the commission unless the council can schedule additional regular meetings. However, the code also specifically says that they can have special meetings to be called at any time by the chair or majority of the commission. And because the commissions, other than the planning commission, don't really conduct business that requires a regular meeting, such as passing an ordinance or a tax, we didn't feel that there was a need to make a formal change in the municipal code, or that we felt that the staff recommended that the boards make those special meetings as they need to. And if they want to set one at the beginning of the year with their regular calendar, they can do that as well, but it would be a special. The next one was the continuation of the Sonoma Valley appointees, and as I discussed earlier, we did update the policy to clarify that there would be the 5 direct appointees would be residents, and that one member shall be, the at-large shall be a Sonoma Valley resident, but that also gives the council the ability to appoint 2 at-large members from the valley if they so chose. The other item was the age of youth members. When we looked at this, because of the way the policy actually reads, it says that at the time of appointment, the youth members have to be between the ages of 14 and 18. So if we stayed with the 2-year term, they could be 20. And a regular individual can run or become a member of a commission as a full voting member with all the powers and duties of a regular thing at the age of 18. So to have someone in a non-voting position until the age of 24, we didn't recommend that. Another item that came up after the meeting staff brought up was the non-voting certified arborist on PROS. It was, at this time, because that position is a volunteer position, commissioners are volunteers, you have individual that is providing professional services with no compensation as a volunteer. So it was suggested that this be removed as a member from the policy, and that that way the individual who is providing those professional services would be compensated for their time. So we did remove that. That would not change the voting number of members on the PROS committee, which would be 7. And that's I know that's a new thought for you. It would come, as I said, it had came up, and I do apologize. It was in the policy, and when I was doing the staff report, I missed it to add into my staff report, so I apologize to that. So with that, the recommendation tonight is by separate motions if the council is in agreement to adopt the resolution approving the city council commission and committee appointment process, which would be the updated policy. If that were to be the case and the council were so desires to do so, I would ask that you would add the addition of the change of the arborist being changed or removed to the resolution. And then the second action would be to introduce the ordinance amending the sections 2.40010 on attendance and sections 2.48020, 250.020, 260.020, and 1012.08, which is involving the composition. With that, I would be happy to answer questions. One last comment I will make is I'm sure you noticed there were a lot of red lines in the policy as we went through it. We really tried to make it more of a policy that was a guiding document as opposed to you shall do this by this date, you shall. And that was kind of the idea when we were make the edits in the policy. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Mayor, I do have one suggestion for a change to the ordinance. So as the clerk explained, under this new regime, we're going to have 7 commissioners on each of the commissions. 5 of them will be direct appointees, all of whom will be city residents. And then there will be 2 more who are at large, who are decided on by the council, at least one of whom has to be a Valley resident. But it could both be Valley residents. So when we went through that draft, initially, we essentially what's left out here are the 2 commissions that already have 7 members, the Planning Commission and the Cultural Fine Arts. So those still have the language that says 6 have to be city residents. So in order to make them all consistent, the council should consider approving as an introduction the ordinance as amended to include the provisions regarding direct appointments and up to 2 Valley residents on the Planning Commission and the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission. And so then we'll get that language tightened up and we'll bring it back for the second reading, obviously, that you'll then get to see at the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Council discussion.
Questions? Right.
Questions? Well, yes, questions of staff, of course.
I have a question. So, and maybe this will come up since the Planning Commission, the Fine Arts and Culture Commission is coming back to us, but my concern with this was for people that are currently alternates and what happens with them. So maybe we have that discussion when that comes back, or should we have that discussion now?
I would recommend you have that discussion now because nothing will change with those 2 commissions that the city attorney just mentioned. We're just making that consistent in terms of how you do the appointments. But the alternates, if you want to discuss that now, we can have that conversation.
Yeah, because I would just want to ensure that the people that are currently alternates on those commissions, that they would remain in that position until their term ends. Otherwise, if there's no alternates, then what happens to those folks? Do they become direct appointments?
So just to clarify the difference between alternates and at-large members. So what we were talking about are the 2 at-large members that are voted on by the city council. At least one of those members has to be a member of the resident of the Valley.
But it says we're getting rid of alternates on the.
So separately, alternates on all boards and commissions would be removed.
So what happens to people that are currently in an alternate position?
They would no longer have to attend the meetings and they would no longer be considered an alternate for that board and commission. So the 7-member body or the body would have to form a quorum with the members they have.
So for example, that the alternate that is currently or on the Planning Commission would no longer be an alternate, and that they wouldn't.
That's correct. They would be an option to fill a position if a council member wants to appoint them as one of their appointees if an opening becomes vacant, if a position becomes vacant, but they would no longer be an alternate at that point.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it's possible to do a transition.
For the commissions that are going from 5 to 7, there's going to be 2 open seats, and they could potentially apply for those.
Yeah, but people generally don't like, they're on a commission because that's the commission that they want to be on, not because they just want to be on a commission. So I just have some concern for that, people that have, is there, like, there could be some transition process so that they're, that they're, the term that alternate exists. Is that an annual, since we all vote on them, right, annually?
Every 2 years.
Every 2 years, that on those, that they would exist till, that term ended versus, because many of them, they come to the meetings, they put the time in, they enjoy doing it, they're not there because, they need the job. So that would be the only thing, is to be respectful of those people and what they've done, to have some kind of transition time for them before we got rid of the alternate in those commissions.
Well, there is a transition, right? Because this wouldn't go into, right now we have everything in effect. So it would come in a year from now, I would imagine, would be the transition when you reappoint. Or am I wrong on that?
So alternates can be removed at any time. So that's one that I think it's a good conversation for the council to provide us guidance on. This does need a second reading before it goes into effect, but once it's in effect, those alternates essentially could be removed. 30 days after the second reading. So there's about 2 months there before anything would happen.
The alternates are in the policy, not in the ordinance. So it's the ordinance that becomes effective that would cause the change in the alternate rather than the ordinance.
Right, but didn't we make it so that the resolution, the policy is effective upon the date that the ordinance is effective? Yeah.
I have the question. I forgot what's the reason last time we mentioned and to remove alternative position, and I forgot. Can you refresh me? For my understanding, usually if you have an alternative here, just like standby and preservation, because I had experience with the Sonoma Valley Citizen Advisory Commission. My fellow and Pat has been reserved alternative position for 8 years, and finally, switched to the regular one. She was so excited, That is, I'm not sure. I just give you the reference, Yes.
Ms. Lowe.
I think in these countywide commissions, it's helpful because, first of all, there's a lot of turnover. It's difficult. Like, I can't make that meeting on Friday. We have alternates because we're traveling up to Santa Rosa or wherever it happens to be. And I think you need alternates, otherwise you wouldn't have quorums for a lot of those commissions that are county-wide or area-wide. Yeah, I think that's why they had them. My experience, and I think the experience of the city manager, was that in most cities, there are no alternates. These alternates are in county positions and so forth. And as much as I lament the fact that somebody who's doing, their good work, maybe the transition would be that they could stay on until, I don't know, as an ad hoc member until January or something. But I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but having consistency so that people know what our rules are on everything, I think is important. And having this kind of hodgepodge of, this is 5 and this is 7 and this has alternates and this is, is not helpful to the community who were urgently trying to get asked to be involved in our city government. And a lot of questions were like, I don't even, we've simplified the application. I don't know how to apply, and I don't know where do I live, and why do I have to be an elector? So I think that what we're doing here is, I think that's great work. Thank you so much for all this clarification. And I think going forward, we're going to have, better participation from the community, because they're going to know very clearly what it is each committee has. And so that's the difference. I'm sorry, it's a long-winded way of explaining that, but I think that's why there's alternates on those statewide and regional bodies, and not on the city ones. And with 7 people, you should be able to have an easier time with your quorums and so forth.
Thank you. Did that answer your question, Mr. Ding?
Yes, that is partly, yeah, I remember. But anyway, I'm thinking, also we go back to the SVCC. That is not a city organization. That is a joint power between the city and the county. So at least the 2 organizations needed to be, conformed each other, because the supervisor appointed, and then they have the alternative.
Right.
That is, and how about out in the city no alternative in the same
We're not
group?
changing that.
Oh, we're not change. Yeah, I hope we will.
Only pertains to city commissions.
Okay.
City commissions.
Okay.
Mr. Wallander.
I'm going to take a little different stance than when we had our study session. I think it is unequivocally a mistake to take the alternate off Planning Commission. Having served on design review and having experienced that for 5 years, having sat on the Planning Commission for 5 years, there's a significant difference between those 2 commissions. If we can find an individual that is willing to serve as an alternate on Planning Commission, which is not easy, and I think our Community Services Director can attest that when you come on board as a new Planning Commissioner, it takes a while to get your sea legs. And I believe that we would not be creating community confusion if we have one commission body have an alternate. If you reflect back, I shouldn't say, as I reflect back on watching the recent Planning Commission hearings on Zoom, it wasn't unusual for someone, A, to be absent, and to bring that alternate in to speak, particularly if there was a conflict of interest. In my tenure as chairing the Planning Commission, one of the things that I greatly valued was the discourse and the discussion in amongst the various members. That to me was rich. Now, if you have someone that ends up not being able to attend, and we have several people that work out of town that have had legitimate excuses for not being there, and I can't fault them for that. So I would strongly recommend, because I don't see the liability there. I don't see confusion. I don't see we're not paying them more. It's not costing us more. And I just think that it's also a nice, it's kind of like not the farm league in baseball, but it's like if you do your due diligence as a alternate, then when a position becomes available and that individual chooses to submit their application, that doesn't obligate us to pick them. But I think one of the things that we try to do is not only to get a variety of personalities, but where are their interests, what background might they have, and how might they segue into this position, because, and again, my opinion, unequivocally, Planning Commission is the second most important body other than the council in this city. So again, I don't think it's going to render confusion, and I just think that if we can find people that are willing to put in the work on speculation on whether or not they're going to be able to speak, then I think we should continue that. So that's just my comment on that. I've got other comments on the other ones, but I can come back.
All right, thank you, Mr. Wallander. Ms. Ferrara-Rivas?
Yeah, I agree with Ron. I think that the planning, and my understanding is how, and maybe it's just with the current members, but I think that one of the current, the alternate on the Planning Commission has sat on the dais more than they've sat in the audience. I'm perfectly comfortable with no alternates for any of the other commissions, and that those go to 7. I think I agree with Ron. Planning is different. It takes, special, and maybe it'll change over time, but there's a level of expertise that's needed there, and it takes a while for people to gain that level of expertise, and it's helpful for them to be able to say, be in an alternate position before they're actually serving on the commission. And because there are decisions there that are time constrained, that have to move forward, I think you want to make sure that you're going to meet that quorum. So that would be the one I think I'd be comfortable making an exception to, and the rest of them, there's no alternate. And I don't think it would be that confusing.
Thank you, Ms. Lowe.
I'm okay with that. In the interest of, let's not drag this on. It seems like there's a majority of the council that is comfortable with keeping it on the planning commission, and I certainly don't want to in any way prolong this conversation on this. If this is the only,
Well, ironically, this was just the question period for the city clerk.
No, but I mean, if this is a sticking point, it's certainly not worth going on and on about. But so I mean, let's move on to other things if
Yes,
this
let's.
is the thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm saying I'm done.
I think we've concluded questions of staff. Are we still having technical difficulties? No, thank you. I got
questions on staff and others.
Hang on,
We have more questions.
hang on. All right, so any public comment should be submitted via email. Thank you. All right, we'll bring it back. Any further discussion with the council?
Should I go back to staff? I have questions for staff.
Go ahead.
Refresh my memory as to the logic behind not allowing a council appointee to appoint someone within the valley and mandating it to be the city. What's the logic?
The reason that we went back to that was when the direct appointments were first implemented, they had to be a qualified elector of the city, because a direct appointee of an elected council member in the city should be a member of, this is at the time, the member of, qualified elector of the city. And so those direct appointments would be members.
So is that something that we just created, or is that typical of other communities and that is justified? Because I don't quite, so what you're saying is that we want to pick from the community that votes?
That was originally, that was the intent when it was originally done.
But what was, again, what I'm not connecting the dots. What was the justification for that?
I would have to go, it's
Okay,
been since
okay.
2018.
Okay,
Councilor
um,
Wallander.
Okay,
Can I make
sure.
a rationale for that?
Sure.
I questioned that as well, because at least one of my appointments is not a city resident, which meant that to extend it, that meant the other two would have to be city residents to get to the 5. So under the new rules, if we each appoint, a direct appointment, if we all decide we like someone who doesn't live in the city limits, we've now got 5 people outside the city limits, and that doesn't meet the policy. So in order to have the direct appointments, it makes the most sense for the direct appointments to all be the city residents, and for at least one of the other 2 to be outside the city. And I had problems with it at first, but then I started doing the math, and I realized that that's what the problem would be.
Okay. Under the youth vote, what's the value of allowing a youth to vote but it doesn't count? Is that just a feel-good measure?
That was actually a suggestion by Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas.
What's your
And
thoughts?
seemed-
So I think the reason is that I've found in watching the youth members is that, it takes them a while to feel comfortable to really participate because they're there with other adults. But then this also gives them, if what we want them is to experience the experience of being on a commission, then we also want them to make the decision on how they're going to vote. And so I think that that's a good practice for them to be able to do. And it was something that actually one of the county county board members, Sonoma County board members, that they had been doing with their youth members. Just to give them that experience, and also makes them, I think, feel more invested in the discussion that they're in.
I just didn't, but
Yeah.
where I was coming from was that we allow them to vote, but oh, by the way, it doesn't count. I mean, I just wonder how that would be interpreted. I'm just throwing it out there. So thank you for your explanation. That's fine. Explain to me how then, if we have a compensated arborist for pros, how does that individual actually, does that individual sit on pros? Or I'm confused on now, because he used to sit on pros and now you're saying that he's not.
I'm going
So-
to turn this over to.
This is mine. I'm sorry. This is a recommendation in collaboration with Public Works, and the individual that currently sits as a non-voting member of PROS is we at the city really need an arborist on staff, and this is the way to get that. And it's the way to get an arborist that's qualified to actually review our tree removal permits, go out with us onto the site, look at these situations, because we don't always get them through tree removal permits. We get other situations in which we need an arborist. And so the idea is if they're on our commission and they're providing that service, then that's a conflict. And so
the challenge I have though with this scenario is that having observed discussions on pros, there is a great advantage of having a non-voting arborist make comment in the discussion. And so if you're telling me now that that individual can't be part of pros because he's being compensated, then I think we're missing out, or we're compromising what could be a more productive discussion.
he would be the staff person providing that commentary.
He would be the staff person. Thank you. My last question, to the delight of my mayor, is...
Can I ask a follow-up to that? So that means we're going to get an arborist on staff.
When she's referring to staff, she just means that it's a paid
Contract
consultant that is
consultant.
working on staff's behalf.
Like we have a landscape
Okay,
as well.
great.
That would be
Thank
one of their charges.
I'd like to have a discussion a little bit more about frequency of meeting, because we just sat and listened to our climate strategy people reflect something that took a heck of a lot of time. And it seems like I can speculate on pros. I can speculate on the climate action. I can't speculate on the cultural and fine arts, although I could probably envision it. That I could see them meeting more often. And this is where I am a strong advocate that if we're asking people to give of their time, we want to make sure we give them a pathway to success and make them feel like they are contributing and that they're doing something that is worthwhile their time. And I know I've heard pushback because it means more staff time. I understand that, but at the same time, I think we need to be a little bit more creative and, again, structure this so that the commissions really feel like there's continuity in thought. I mean, whether it's traffic, it's something that I would think would be justified to at least get further discussion about the frequency rather than, basically saying, boom, you do it just these 4 and that's it. Or the chair has to initiate that.
So I will actually take a counter to that.
Good.
Nothing worse than meeting for the sake of meeting. And there's nothing that prohibits any of these commissions from meeting more frequently as needed.
But that requires staff to be present, does it not?
I would imagine it would.
Well, I'm just simply saying that if you gave an opportunity and had a discussion with some of the members of these commissions, I think they might say, yes, we would like to meet more often.
I think that's up to the commission chair.
They can. No, we're not
Well, I don't know if that's been very effectively communicated to date.
Maybe not.
To the
We're
So as
reworking
long as
it.
that's communicated and so that the commissioners recognize that, then I will back off and we can continue other discussion.
Okay, where to go from here? The $1 million question. Okay, I'm afraid, but, yes, Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, and I apologize for reopening this again, but I just want to loop back to the alternate. I'm hearing a majority say that they're okay with an alternate for one commission, the Planning Commission. Just as a reminder that that's not common at all to have an alternate. I understand and respect the rationale for why you want that. But I heard multiple comments about the loss of quorum, but that with 7 members, you can have 3 people gone and still have continuity of that body. Just like with the city council, you could have 2 members gone, but still do work. So that is the way that typical boards and commissions operate. And so it's up to us to make sure that they're attending. The alternates, I think I just want to just be careful with having alternates on these committees. And so I would recommend against it, but I respect the position you're bringing forward. And if that's the will of the council, we'll make sure that that happens. But.
What I shared was what I've observed for the 6 years that I sat on Planning Commission. And in the way they've been conducted, based upon the kinds of projects that went before them, there seemed to be justification to do it. And although I'm a council person that is open-minded to hearing that this is the way other communities do it, I don't feel obligated that we have to absolutely do it just because somebody else does it.
All right. I think the point was nobody else is doing it. So, all right. With this quagmire that we have going here, is there a motion or?
I think we need public comment, don't we have?
Oh, no, we're having technical difficulties, but in the chambers, is there anybody who would like to comment on this? Good. All right, seeing none. So, back to the council. Is there a motion to be had, or?
I do think we need 2 motions. So we want one for the resolution to approve the policy with any amendments, and then the other one would be to introduce the ordinance as amended based on the changes to the Cultural Fine Arts and Planning Commission number of direct appointees and Valley residents. To the extent you're going to deal with alternates on Planning Commission, that should be included in the policy, so it would go with the resolution.
I'll be more than happy to make a motion to support the policy with the amended change of keeping an alternate for the Planning Commission. And do we need to make can I make this consecutive motion for the second part, or does that have to be separate? No, it's separate. Okay, so.
To clarify for that motion with respect to the Planning Commission, so, currently we have a section that governs alternates. Would your proposal be to just keep that section in the new policy, but make it applicable only to the Planning Commission? Or did you want us to revise that?
I am totally open to making it whatever's the easiest way.
We can bring that back with
whatever's the easiest way.
Put it
Don't
on
care.
consent for next time.
Don't care.
If that, to the extent it gets a second and is approved.
Could we also add, if the council was willing, the language about the arborist?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes. The policy about the arborist, or is that part of the ordinance?
No, that's not it.
I think it's just removing the arborist from the list of members. I don't even think you list it as non-voting. I think it's just removed, because we don't list, your name, the clerk, and, all the other support personnel for these commissions. I think you just remove it.
Okay, so I think we might have a motion. Could somebody read the motion back to us? No, Mr. Ding, please, I'm asking staff.
I can give it a shot. What was I'm a little confused about the arborist. Is this a change from what's currently written?
The change it's not in the policy, it's in the resolution. It was not designated as one of the changes. I just want to make sure that we capture that in the resolution.
I see. So it would be a motion to approve the resolution approving revisions to the council, commission, and committee appointment policy with an amendment to the resolution itself to list the removal of a non-voting arborist on pros, and with the revision to maintain the alternate language, but limit it to the planning commission only.
I second that.
That's exactly what I said, I think.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Wellender?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, the next one.
It's the,
What? The second, oh, yes, great.
You're more anxious than I am.
Okay, so regarding the second issue,
I move to introduce the ordinance amending SMC Section 2.40.010, attendance in sections 2.48.02, 2.50.020, 2.60.020, and 10.12.080 composition.
is there a second?
I second. Oh, this.
The addition that we're also amending 2.44101 Planning Commission and
Yep.
2.56020 Cultural Fine Arts Commission composition.
Yes, those are not written on my screen.
Correct, and that's why I brought that up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a different motion.
That's my
Is-
motion.
Is there still a second?
Yes, still second.
Yeah. All right, roll call vote.
Councilmember Wellender?
Yes.
Councilmember Dean?
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Farrar Rivas?
Aye.
Mayor Gurney?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
We have general public comment now.
Oh, yeah.
General public comment.
I think you're not supposed, Robert Demler, First Street West, sorry, you're not supposed to make a public comment about something that was on the agenda, but if you will indulge me, I want to say tonight, and I come here a lot, as you know, and probably pains half of you, but I enjoyed and I love this town. I thought the comments from the opposition to 8.1 tonight were very coherent and more factual and less emotional than before, and I appreciate what they did. They're not here to hear what I said. I also plan to compliment you on your summing up your voting position. I thought it was a brilliant balancing act of taking a tough decision, weighing all the factors, pro and con, that's really best for the city. And as I called it before, it's growing pains, and I congratulate you all for doing so. The discussion that you had on 9.2 and 9.1, sorry. And I really wanted to say why I came for public comments. I've been in bed sick for over 2 weeks. Today is my second full day out, and I'm so happy to be around town and see our wonderful city. It's still there after my 2 weeks, and I congratulate and thank all of you for helping to keep it that way. City council and city staff and city commissions who are not here. Thank you.
We're glad you're back with us.
We just hope you're not contagious.
Someone was with me, so.
No further comment. Meeting adjourned.